Welcome back. Night travelers, pull your blankets close, load a lantern, and listen. Tonight's tale rides on a salt, cool breeze, and our heroine is not a god, nor a giant, nor a queen carved from thunder. She is Eira, a fisher's daughter with callous hands, stubborn eyes, and a loom that hums when the wind is in the mood to gossip. You see, the wind is nosy. It slides under doors, eavesdrops on cliffs, steals secrets from sails, and then pretends it never heard a thing. Most people only feel it and complain. Too cold, too loud, too much. Eira hears it. Every word, every warning, every joke the storm tells ashore. Her village clings to a broken crescent of coast. Boats pulled up like sleeping seals, roofs that never learn to stop leaking, and an old shrine where the gulls confess their crimes. They say the sea raises children faster than it returns fathers. They say the wind takes what it wants. Eira says, fine, then I'll ask it to give something back. It began, as these things do, on a morning that was almost ordinary. Eira woke before dawn, the kind of blue hour when even waves whisper. She boiled nettle tea, counted the knots in the old net, and reminded the stove, gently, not to sulk. Then the breeze slipped through the window and said, as breezes do when they want trouble, bring the loom. Now, you should know about Eira's loom. It's an heirloom in the rude, literal sense, heavy, stubborn, with teeth that bite fingers that aren't paying attention. Her grandmother swore it once belonged to a skald who angered the wrong god, which, to be fair, is most of them. Eira oils it with whale fat and patience. At her touch, the wood warms, the pegs settle, and the heddles lift like birds remembering how to fly. That morning, the wind pressed the shutters and murmured, out, to the headland, before anyone else wakes. Bring wool, the gray skein. Bossy, Eira muttered. But she wrapped the loom's traveling frame in sailcloth, slung wool over her shoulder, and slipped out while the village still dreamed of mended nets and fish that leap into boats out of pity. On the headland, stone, salt, sky. The kind of high place where gulls take attendance and storms rehearse their entrances. Eira set the frame, tied the warp, and waited. The breeze sharpened. The threads trembled. Somewhere below, the sea cleared its throat, the theatrical sort of cough that means pay attention. Fine, Eira said, but no tricks. The first gust passed through her hair, cool and electric, and sank into the loom. The warp lifted. The shuttle jumped in her palm. Weaving should be a steady business. Count, pass, beat, repeat. But Eira's shuttle ran like a rumor, and the cloth grew as it were already remembering itself. What are you making me weave? She asked. A warning, the wind said. A door. A door in cloth? All doors are just agreements, the wind replied. Make the agreement. Quickly, the pattern rose, ash gray and pearl, a braid of sky threads and sea threads, with lines like coastline and lines like runes that have forgotten how to behave. Eira's fingers kept up because they had to. Her mind chased behind, falling over questions. The fabric cooled where the breeze passed, warmed where her pulse hit it, and where both met, symbols sparked. She smelled pine longhouses she'd never entered, heard oars dipping in water she hadn't sailed, and tasted iron on a wind that hadn't blown yet. Enough, Eira said, though she didn't mean it. What is this for? Before the wind could answer, the cliff spoke, not in words, in the rude, immediate way cliffs prefer. A crack, a shiver, a slice of rock sheared away, and fell into the hungry froth below. Spray leapt up, cold, bright, aiming straight for the loom. Eira flung the cloth over frame on instinct, and the spray hit the woven door and slid sideways, as if the world had decided left was safer than forward. Sound bent, light folded, for the length of a single stunned heartbeat. The headland was two places at once. Then it wasn't. The spray shattered harmless on grass. The cliff settled, groaning like a big man, deciding not to stand up after all. Eira stood very still and listened to her heart try to climb out through her teeth. You could have said shield instead of door, she told the wind. Shields keep one thing out, the wind said. Doors choose what to let through. Admiring your own poetry again. Someone has to, the wind replied, pleased with itself. Eira lifted the cloth. It weighed more than cloth should, like fog you could fold. Patterns shifted where she stared too long. A line that was definitely a goal became a rune, became a path, became a breath she hadn't taken yet. She swallowed hard, and the fabric tasted of pine smoke and snow. Back in the village, life performed its old tricks. Nets tore out of spite. A baby decided the son was suspicious. Two brothers argued about whose turn it was to regret yesterday. But under the noise, the wind's whisper threaded every ear. Not words, the idea of words. The hint that there was something you'd meant to remember and would, if only you turned your head a little to the left. Eira did not show the cloth to anyone. Not yet. She rolled it carefully, tied it with blue twine, and tucked it into the chest beneath the bed, where you hide things that will ruin your day in one of two ways, if found or if not. That night, as lanterns dimmed and the sea rehearsed all the mistakes it would make tomorrow, Eira lay awake and counted the seconds between gusts. 3, 5, 2, never the same. The wind favors odd, numbers away cats, favor people who don't want cats. Is this about storms? She asked the darkness. Giants? Taxes. The wind slid under the door and settled on her blanket, like a house guest with opinions. This is about listening. You listen, others will not. That is the beginning of every trouble and every miracle. Grandmother said the same. Eira whispered. She learned it the loud way. The wind said, you may learn it gentler if you choose. Choose what? The window shivered. The latch rattled. From somewhere far off, antlers in snow, a bell with no tower, a wolf exhaling steam. The breeze pressed closer. Tomorrow, the north wind comes hunting. It carries a lie someone paid too much for. If you do nothing, it will settle in your village and grow teeth. If you weave, you can catch it. But doors open both ways. You mean I could trap something in with us? Yes. And if I don't weave, it eats something I love. Yes. Nice options. You want it to be interesting, the wind said and paused. You are. Eira laughed, the soft, exhausted kind. Will I regret this? Yes, the wind said cheerful, but not yet. She fell asleep with the taste of pine smoke still on her tongue, and dreams she couldn't quite hear running circles around the bed. At dawn, the north wind arrived. You think you know cold until the north decides to be punctual. It came down the fjord with sound like knives learning to sing. The boats muttered in their ropes. Dogs tried to remember courage. The old shrine's gulls forgot their crimes. Eira carried the loom to the headland. The cloth waited on the grass, gray and pearl under a sky that hadn't decided whether to be kind. Her fingers shook as she tied the warp. She had woven by moonlight, by gossip, by boredom, never by threat. Tell me what to catch, she said. Shadows, the wind answered. Not the kind that night makes, the kind that fear hires. The first gusset like a thrown plate, sharp, personal, loud. Threads snapped, then wove themselves back together. Pattern spun, antler, bell, wolf breath, and then something uglier, a stain that moved on its own. A lie, looking for a mouth. Not in my village, Eira said, and the shuttle flew. Weaving is math you can touch, count, pass beat, but today it was music. Her hands kept time with the wind. Her breath matched the sea, and the cloth grew into a door that understood both invitation and refusal. When the shadow lunged, the door opened just enough to swallow it and slammed shut like a grandmother's judgment. Silence. Then the cliff sighed, the kind older rocks make when younger rocks get dramatic. The stain twisted beneath the weave, seeking seams. Eira pressed her palm flat over it. Cold burned through her skin, intention versus intention, and for a moment she saw who had paid for the lie, a tall man with a smile like borrowed money. A hall where antlers were trophies and guests were inventory, a rune cut into a world with a price no one had counted. She recoiled, breath in, and the door tightened. Who taught you that? She demanded of the wind. No one, the wind said. You were listening. She laughed, shaky, triumphant, absolutely not ready to cry. So now I've trapped a lie in a blanket. In a door, the wind corrected. Don't open it unless you want to meet its owner. Do I? Not today, the wind said, almost gentle. Soon. Eira looked back toward the village. Smoke rising, boats tipping, a child dragging a stick like a sword that had decided to retire. She rolled the cloth and tied it with the blue twine. Tighter this time. The sort of knot you make when you admit to yourself that there are people in the world who would happily cut it. All right, she told the headland, the sea, the wind that love her enough to be annoying. I'll listen, but if I end up explaining any of this to a god, you're doing the introductions. Happily, the wind said. Gods hate introductions. It makes them almost polite. On the walk home, the breeze braided itself into her hair and told her 3 secrets it shouldn't have known. The name of the storm waiting 2 fjords north, the taste of a silver cup she would have to refuse, and the sound a wolf makes when it decides to leave you alone, which is infuriatingly just silence wearing fur. By noon, word had already reached the wrong ears. A peddler with a smile, like Frost, told someone who told someone who told someone who writes letters with teeth. By evening, ravens had the news. By dusk, lamplight in a hall far away burned a little brighter. And somewhere between here and there, a man with antlers carved on every cup lifted one, tasted a lie going missing, and smiled the smile of borrowed money that expects not to be paid back. Find me the girl, he said, to no one you could point at, and bring me her wind. The breeze curled in Eira's ear and pretended not to be afraid. Tomorrow, Eira said, to courage, to cowardice, to the loom that had become a door. We weave early. And the wind replied, in that playful, dangerous voice it uses when everything is about to matter. We do. Welcome back, listeners. The kettle is just below boiling, the sky just above trouble, and our heroine is pretending breakfast is a plan. Eira thinks she can finish her porridge before Destiny knocks. Destiny, being rude, prefers windows, so it comes in as a draft and steals a spoon. You see, word travels fastest when no one is supposed to hear it. The wind tries to mind its manners, but gossip is a weather system. By sunrise, 3 gulls and 1 suspicious peddler know that a fisher's daughter wove a door and caught something that wasn't water. By noon, ravens flap like punctuation marks headed for a sentence they can't wait to finish. By dusk, strangers are already practicing the kind of smile you wear when you plan to borrow things forever. Eira ties back her hair, checks the chest where the gray cloth sleeps, and tells herself not to look nervous. Then she looks nervous anyway. The breeze stroke taps her knuckles like a tutor with soft hands. Breathe. I am, she says, then breathe quieter. Outside, the village does its ritual of pretending nothing is happening. Nets are mended. Boats are lied to. Some men argue about fish that haven't been caught yet, which is the safest sort of fish to brag about. The old shrine complains and creaks, which is how shrines say, I told you so. The peddler arrives just before the light tilts. He's ordinary in a precise way that isn't. Clothes exactly forgettable. Smile like Frost deciding where to land. His cart sells needles and stories. The stories are more expensive. He stops at Eira's door. Good day, he says, which is the sort of thing villains say when they are still browsing. Windy, Eira answers. He looks at the strands of wool hanging to dry, at the loom with its traveling frame propped under the eaves, at Eira's hands, nicked, quick, confident. Folks say you make cloth that keeps bad weather outdoors. Folks say many things, Eira replies. Some even say good morning. He laughs, a little too polished, like a coin you've been told is real. I have a client who admires good weave. Your client can buy blankets like everyone else. Not a blanket. A door. He studies her face, the way hunters study deer that haven't decided which direction is safer. You've woven something unusual. You practice that sentence, Eira says. I practice many. He tilts his head. He wears antlers when he drinks. He likes to own the stories people tell about him. He pays well. And what does he pay with? Eira asks. Money is money, but some men pay in storms. He smiles again, thinner. The kind who pays in storms already paid for one. It went missing. Eira feels the blue twine around the rollcloth under the bed tug in her mind, like a fish deciding it prefers not to be the lesson today. The wind presses her shoulder. Not yet. Tell your client, she says, that my doors are for houses, not for men. He bows. He doesn't argue. That's the most unsettling sort of threat, the one that agrees with you. When he leaves, the street seems wider where he walked, as if space wanted to keep its distance. The wind curls around Eira's ear. He will be back. I will be elsewhere, she says, and immediately wishes she hadn't said it out loud. Promises are invitations. The world loves the RSVP. She takes the loom to the headland, because thinking at sea level makes her feel shorter. Clouds stub their toes on the cliff. The north is a cold knife, but the light on the water is a bandage that almost fits. Eira sets a frame, fingers quick, and whispers, "If trouble comes, let it trip." Hospitality. The wind approves. Respectfully, I'm in a stingy mood. She ties the warp. The threads quiver. The shuttle weighs exactly the same and somehow heavier, like a secret you've decided you're too honest to keep. Today, the wind says, "We weave listening. We did that yesterday." "Yesterday you listened to me," the wind replies. "Today to them." Them who? The first raven answers with performative indifference of a bird paid in shiny things. It lands 3 steps away, pretending it was headed elsewhere. A second joins, then a third, until the cliff looks like punctuation gone mutinous. One croaks in a voice that is almost but not quite a man's. "Message." "Deliver," Eira says. "Not to you." The raven answers, and yet stays. Behind them, a boy from the village climbs a path, cheeks pink with someone else's errand. "Eira, the Jarl's steward is in the hall, with papers." "Whose papers?" "Yours, I think. He says a tax was discovered." "There's always a tax," Eira mutters. "What do they call when it is new?" "Backdated." The wind sighs. "To the year when numbers were invented." Eira should go. That is how traps work. They invite you to be reasonable in public, while your house learns to be empty in private. She strokes the weft and the threads settle, like dogs told to stay. "Tell them I'll arrive when the tide switches," she says. "That's after dark." "Perfect," Eira says. "Then no one will have to see me not smile." The boy grins because he is too young to recognize war in polite syllables. He runs back down, feet scattering pebbles into the sea. The ravens tilt their heads, which is to say, they take notes. "I will need a small door," Eira tells the wind, "in case someone uninvited decides to be indoors." "Small doors are the truest kind," the wind says. "Big doors try to be metaphors." She weaves. This time the pattern is narrower, quick as breath, gray with a thread of sky blue that wasn't there a moment ago. The cloth drinks sound, not silence, just the bits of noise that gossip hide behind. When she finishes, it weighs almost nothing and somehow exactly her worry. She tucks it under her coat and heads for the hall. The village pretends not to stare. Children measure her with the kind of curiosity that will someday own knives. A dog offers to escort her partway, and then remembers it as appointments. The Jarl steward waits inside, like furniture that talks. Antlers hang on the walls in tidy, boastful rows. The air smells of money that ate too much salt. "Lady Eira," he says, and Eira nearly laughs, because her best pair of boots is the one with fewer holes, and titles are just leashes that haven't found your neck yet. "I'm not a lady," she says. "I'm the reason your cloak won't dry properly." "What is your errand?" He shows her a parchment covered with handwriting that looks like frost enjoying itself. "A levy." The Jarl has taken interest in specialized crafts. "We admire innovation. We tax it, so it continues to be admirable." "What is the rate?" Eira asks. "Whatever you cannot pay." He smiles the way men do when they plan to praise your dignity after they take your house. "Ah," Eira says, "a traditional amount. You can deliver your goods to the storehouse by moonrise. You'll get windburn," Eira says mildly. "It's rough-handed." "Pardon." "Nothing. I'll bring you a sample." She's careful with the small door. She lays across the storehouse threshold while the steward counts coins he hasn't won yet. The cloth looks like an innocuous strip of gray, which is the safest color for miracles. She sets the warp pin just so, a trick that tells the door who's invited to pick it up later, and who deserves to kick their own toes. "Where's this storehouse's back exit?" she asks. "There is none," he says, offended by the suggestion that a door might be more practical than symbolic. "Then we agree." When she leaves, the wind slinks along the hall beams, tasting words before people do. He has letters for birds, it whispers, the kind that fly uphill toward palaces. "Of course he does," Eira says. "Men who trap geese with promises of love to send ravens with threats." Back at her cottage, she checks the blue twine again. Still tied, still humming like a note that hasn't decided if it wants to become music. She presses her palm to the chest lid. "Stay." The breeze nudges her wrist. He won't try the chest. Not first. "What then?" "The window." The wind says, and the window listens, which is the worst habit for a window. Eira moves the loom to the center of the room. She sets the shuttle on the sill as bait for polite thieves. Then she sits very still and learns the rhythm of the hall outside. Boots, gossip, the shy cough of someone paid to pretend they don't exist, and the long, patient breath of a stranger deciding whether to turn a handle. The handle turns. Eira does not look. She speaks to the wind the way fishermen speak to nets when they want them to feel clever. "Now." The small door she laid at the storehouse whips sideways like a fish deciding to be a knife. Space folds. The steward, reaching for a different door entirely, finds his hand full of night air at seaside temperature. His foot, already committed to entering, discovers that thresholds are opinionated. He stumbles through and out again into the alley behind Eira's cottage where barrels learn humility. He curses in a dialect that belongs to people who have never had to catch their own breakfast. Eira opens her actual door and smiles the sort of smile you put on when you mean to be wicked later. "Evening. You seem lost." He straightens, adjusts a coat that no longer agrees with him, and smooths the frost out his voice. "A misunderstanding. We were inventorying. For safety." Safety is a lovely word. Eira says, "I prefer it when it isn't taking notes." Behind him, a shape leans on the corner of the house, all wrong angles and confident shoulders. He is not the peddler. He is what peddlers turn into when the receipt says soul included. Antlers are etched into the metal of his clasp. Not gaudy, worse, tasteful. "Good evening," he says, and his voice is a warm fire you remember from a house that burned down. Jarl Arn invites your craft to court. "Invites," Eira repeats. "Invites," he insists. "And if you find the road long, we can carry you. On feet, on paper, or in a bag?" Eira asks. He smiles like borrowed money. "Why choose?" The wind presses Eira's shoulder, not in fear, not quite in comfort. Behind him, it whispers, something with teeth that aren't for eating. Eira looks past the nice coat. In the twilight, there's a shimmer where light denies it is involved. Air gathers into posture. It is dog-shaped, wolf-sized, storm-boned. Its breath would be a fog if it deigned a fog. A wind-wolf, leash made from someone's promise, eyes the color of people who talk during funerals. The Jarl's man watches her watch it. Beautiful, isn't he? He only eats lies. How do you feed him? Eira asks. With truth, the man says, very pleased with himself. Cruel diet. Discipline, he corrects. You'll come to admire it. Eira holds his gaze until the wolf flicks an ear, boredom or warning. She speaks softly, as if to a dog too clever to be trained. I already wove a door. I could weave a leash. The wind approves. The wolf dislikes being between verbs. You could also weave a noose, the man says pleasantly. Accidents happen. Then we'll pretend to avoid them. Eira says, for now. Excellent, he says. Tomorrow at dawn. Travel light. Your loom, of course. Of course, she says, which is a type of agreement that is really a map drawn on fog. They go. The alley widens like a hell breath being put down. The steward takes the long way to the hall, as if distance were an apology. The wind wolf does not look back, which is how wolves promise they will. Eira closes the door and leans against it. The wind sits on the table like a cat that hasn't admitted it's a cat. Well, I don't like being invited, she says. I prefer arriving. Then arrive elsewhere, the wind suggests. I will, Eira says. But first, lessons. She sets the loom. She lays a new warp, thinner, tighter, a patient geometry. This won't be a door. It will be something ruder. She chooses the gray skein, adds a single strand of sea green, and one hair from the wolf that wasn't there a minute ago, because the future has terrible table manners. What is it? The wind asks, pretending not to know. A pocket, Eira says. Small, sharp, for holding teeth. You plan to steal his wind. Borrow, Eira says. Political verb. She weaves. Count, pass, beat, yes, but also listen, refuse, invite, deny. The cloth builds into a fold that isn't visibly there, a curve in the flat, a pause in a word you weren't speaking. She stitches the pocket to the hem of her coat, where honest people keep handkerchiefs, and dishonest ones keep handkerchiefs that are maps. Tomorrow, the wind says, he brings 2 more men and a leash you cannot see. Then I'll bring a question he cannot answer, which, what he is without antlers, Eira says. Some men are only their trophies. Night deepens, the kind that asks whether you locked all 5 of the doors you can name, and the 2 you forgot you have. Eira sets the small gray strip across the cottage threshold again. Welcome to those who deserve it. Stub toes to anyone else. She pulls the chest from under the bed and lifts the little fingers with. The blue twine shivers like a spine, deciding to be brave. Sleep, she tells it. Tomorrow we behave badly. The wind sighs, fond, exasperated. Mortals always say tomorrow when they mean now. Is there a difference? Eira asks. Only for clocks, the wind says, and steals her spoon again to prove it. Just before dawn, when the seer rehearses its apologies and the gulls practice their crimes, Eira wakes to a sound like a polite knife. The wind wolf breathes outside. The Jarl's man clears his throat like a sermon putting on boots. The steward stands ready to inventory whatever isn't nailed down and some things that are. Eira ties her coat. The pocket at the hem feels like weather in the mood to argue. Ready? The wind asks. No, Eira says and opens the door anyway. Dawn was rude, not just early, loud, with gulls rehearsing arguments and boats creaking like they'd been betrayed in the night. The Jarl's man stood outside Eira's cottage as if he owned the ground, frost on his shoulders and confidence on his lips. The steward shuffled beside him, clutching papers that already smelled of loss. And behind them, the wind wolf waiting, its breath curling in pale spirals no one else seemed to notice. You're punctual, Eira said, tying her boots. We are generous, the man replied. The Jarl dislikes waiting. You'll travel light. I always do, she said, and lifted the loom frame. The cloth with the trapped lies stayed hidden under her bed, blue twine humming softly. She wasn't bringing that to anyone's hall. The wolf growled, or rather, the air around it grew heavier, like a breath leaning too close. Eira met its gaze. If you eat lies, you'll starve in this village. The Jarl's man smirked. On the contrary, lies are the one crop that grows anywhere. The path wound along cliffs slick with dew, the sea a constant witness below. Villagers peeked from doors, whispering. Some spat for luck, some crossed themselves, and some shook their heads. Not because they disliked Eira, but because everyone prefers their miracles stay rumors. The steward trailed behind, muttering counts of imaginary taxes. Eira ignored him, focusing instead on the wolf's gait. It did not walk. It unfolded. Each step was less a paw than an agreement between ground and air. The wind pressed against her ear. Careful. He's leashed, but the leash is paper. Paper burns, Eira whispered. So do villages, the wind replied. By midday, they reached a stone outpost where guards waited with spears polished too often, which is to say, not for battle, but for boredom. The Jarl's banner hung above, black antlers on pale cloth, a symbol that meant everything here belongs to me, even the air if I can price it. The man gestured. Rest here before we cross the fjord. Eira set down her loom, stretched her fingers, and let her eyes wander. The guards avoided her gaze, but their whispers reached her anyway. The weaver, the one with doors. The Jarl will have her, or break her. The wind slipped between them and carried the word straight to her. She smiled thinly. Breaking looms is bad luck. The Jarl's man tilted his head. Do you believe in luck? I believe in thread, she answered. It remembers everything. That night, they lodged in the outpost hall. The fire burned too hot, as if trying to impress the stone walls. Men laughed too loudly, and someone sang of battles that never quite happened. Eira sat apart, weaving a strip of gray cloth no wider than her palm. The steward leaned closer. What is it? A pocket, she said. For what? For silence. She finished, tied it, and dropped it onto the table. The hall's noise dulled instantly, voices muffled, laughter muted. The men froze, uneasy, then blinked as sound returned. The steward crossed himself twice. The Jarl's man chuckled. Clever. His eyes, though, glittered like someone measuring a prize. The wolf exhaled. Threads on her loom quivered, as if remembering teeth. When everyone slept, Eira sat awake. The pocket of silence folded beside her, the loom across her knees. The wind whispered low. Tomorrow, the Jarl himself. His hall has antlers on every wall, but his smile has sharper points. Eira sighed. What does he want? What all men with halls want. Doors that only they control. She stroked the threads. Then tomorrow we show him. Some doors refuse to stay shut. The wind chuckled. Mortals are at their best when impolite. At dawn, horns sounded across the fjord. A ship waited, black-sailed, its prows carved with snarling stags. The Jarl stood aboard, broad-shouldered, his crown of antlers polished until it gleamed like ice. He raised a hand, smile wide and borrowed. Eira of the loom, his voice carried over water, rich and false. Bring me your wind. The wolf's eyes glowed. The loom trembled, and the wind whispered in her ear, Choose your first word carefully. Words are threads. He will try to weave you. The fjord stretched wide, gray water rolling like muscle under skin. The Jarl's ship cut through it with the confidence of a knife that knows it's sharp. Black sails sagged with too much pride, antler prows grinned with too many teeth, and oars dipped in rhythm meant to sound like inevitability. On the deck stood the Jarl himself, taller than rumor, broad as insult, crown of antlers catching every scrap of morning light. His smile was polished bone, inviting, dangerous, already counting what wasn't his. Eira of the loom, he boomed. The coast carries your name. The wind hums with it. The ravens repeat it. I admire anything the world cannot shut up about. Eira, standing on the cliff path with her loom strapped to her back, raised an eyebrow. Admiration sounds expensive. The guards chuckled nervously. The steward paled. The Jarl's grin only widened. Expensive things, he said, are worth owning. The wind pressed Eira's ear. He likes to begin as if he's already finished. Interrupt him. She cupped her hands and called across the water. If you want a door, Jarl, armed by wood. If you want weather, go fishing. If you want me, she paused, long enough for the gulls to argue overhead, then you should learn what I want. The oars faltered. For a breath. The fjord forgot to be impressed. The Jarl leaned on the rail, studying her the way storms study roofs. And what do you want, girl who weaves? Breakfast, she said, and fewer men standing on my grass. Laughter broke from the guards on the cliff. One choked trying to hide it. Even the wolf exhaled like a snort. The Jarl's smile cracked at the edges. Sharp tongue, he said. I have sharpeners. They ferried her across anyway. She stepped onto the black deck with the calm of someone who'd already rehearsed defiance. The wolf padded beside her, unseen by most, heavy as a threat only she acknowledged. Inside the hall, antlers adorned every wall. Stags, elk, moose, trophies of size and shadow, some older than memory, some fresher than sense. Each skull grinned down like a judge enjoying the case too much. The Jarl spread his arms. Welcome to your future. Eira set the loom against the pillar. Welcome to my temporary seating arrangement. He laughed. Too loudly, too long. The kind of laugh that buys itself a drink before anyone else does. Show me, he said, voice low now. Show me how the wind obeys you. The wolf's eyes glowed. The guards leaned closer. Even the fire in the hearth tilted forward, as if gossiping. Eira touched the warp. The threads quivered, eager, nervous, alive. "The wind doesn't obey me," she said. "It chooses to be rude with me." She passed the shuttle once. The cloth shimmered, a faint gray-blue ripple. A draft ran across the hall, scattering parchments, bending flames, whispering words that weren't spoken. One guard gasped. He heard his dead mother's lullaby. Another cursed. The wind repeated the debt he owed. The Jarl stiffened. His antlers caught the draft, rattling faintly. "Trickery," he spat. "Listening." Eira corrected. "You'd be amazed how loud silence is when it's tired of you." The hall roared with disquiet. The wolf growled. The Jarl's face darkened. "You will weave for me," he said. "Doors to keep rivals out. Doors to keep loyalty in. A wall of air around my hall. So strong even the gods themselves must knock." Eira's hand stilled on the threads. "And if I refuse?" The Jarl's grin returned, crueler this time. "Then the wind learns to carry screams." The wolf padded closer, breath icy, eyes like holes in the world. The wind hissed in her ear. "Careful. He knows half of what you can do. He wants the other half." Eira straightened, her voice steady. "I weave doors, Jarl Arn, but doors swing both ways. If you force mine, don't be surprised when something worse walks through." The Jarl laughed again, but there was a tremor under it now. The kind men hide when they realize storms don't always report to kings. The hall smelled of smoke, sweat, and promises that had been sharpened into threats. Men leaned in, eyes greedy for spectacle. The Jarl sat on his chair of antlers, chin high, grin brittle, and the wolf of wind prowled in a slow circle, invisible to most, but heavy enough that the floorboards creaked. Again, the Jarl commanded, "Weave." Eira ran her thumb along the shuttle. The threads thrummed, eager, nervous. "What kind of door do you want this time?" "One that locks the sea," he said. "A tide that bends to me. I want to drink ale while ships ride outside my harbor." The hall erupted in cheers. Cups slammed against tables. Some faces smiled too wide. Others smiled because they were being watched. Eira tilted her head. "You want a door that tells the sea what to do?" "Yes." "The sea doesn't use doors." The laughter broke awkwardly. The Jarl's eyes narrowed. Eira sighed as if bored. "I can weave you something, though. A pocket. Small. Enough to show you what it costs when you ask for obedience from things that don't kneel." She passed the shuttle once, twice. The loom sighed. A strip of cloth grew, shimmered and darkened, gray, then blue, then black. It rippled as if waves moved through it. The Jarl leaned forward. "What is it?" "A sample." She lifted it. The cloth felt heavier than water. She tossed it to the steward. "Hold it." He caught it and staggered. His boots sank into the floorboards as if mud had replaced oak. His arms shook, knees bent, eyes wide. It's heavy." Eira nodded. "That's the sea. I wove a corner of it. You asked for obedience. Carry it, then." The steward collapsed, cloth dragging him down. Water spilled from nowhere, pooling across the hall. Guards rushed forward, slipping, cursing. The Jarl stood, faced a storm of awe and anger. Eira snapped her fingers. The threads of the cloth shivered, then dissolved into mist. The water vanished. The steward lay gasping, soaked to the bone, hands empty. The hall fell silent. Even the fire hushed. Eira's voice cut the stillness. "The sea doesn't obey. It only drowns slower when it feels polite." The Jarl's smile returned, tight and gleaming. "Perfect. With cloth like that, I will own coastlines." Eira shook her head. "With cloth like that, coastlines will own you." The wolf growled, air trembling. The Jarl raised a hand, silencing it. "You will weave for me. I'll have no more riddles." The wind hissed in Eira's ear. "Careful. He's not asking. He's deciding." She straightened calm. "Then decide this, Jarl Arn. Every door I weave remembers a hand that asked for it. If you order me to bind the sea, someday the sea will come asking who dared, and it won't knock." The hall stirred uneasily. Even drunk men know when words weigh more than steel. The Jarl slammed his fist on the armrest. Enough! His voice cracked like splitting oak. You will come to my hall tomorrow. You will weave under my roof, at my hearth. You will eat my bread and drink my ale and call me lord. If not, he gestured. The wolf bared its teeth. Cold breath washed the hall. Eira placed her hand on the loom. Threads hummed. If not, she said softly, then your wolf will learn what hunger really means. The air thickened. Men shifted, unease breaking into whispers. The Jarl's smile trembled at the edge of breaking, but he held it, because power prefers masks even when masks are cracking. Tomorrow, he said again, lower now. Eira bowed, shallow mocking. Tomorrow, then, if the wind agrees. That night, in the guest chamber the Jarl assigned her, the wind coiled around her shoulders like a cloak. He fears you. That's why he shouts. I fear him, she admitted. That's why I don't. The cloth in her chest, the one bound in blue twine, hummed softly, as if the lie inside wanted to hear. She touched it, eyes closing. Tomorrow we weave in politeness. And outside, the wolf paced, breath clouding the window, waiting for doors it could not see. The guest chamber was too fine to be trusted. Walls paneled with oak, floors scrubbed too clean, a bed stuffed with down that looked eager to swallow secrets. Eira sat on its edge and kept her boots on. No good story ever began with someone comfortable. The loom rested against the wall, frame folded, threads humming faintly in the draft. On the table stood a silver cup of ale, untouched. The wind twirled around it like a suspicious cat. Don't drink. I wasn't planning to, Eira said. It smells like a smile that went bad. Good. Poison is just honesty in liquid form. From the hall below came laughter too heavy, the clatter of cups, and the kind of songs men sing to remind themselves they're not afraid of tomorrow. Between verses, the wolf's breath echoed against the stones, pacing, pacing, pacing. Eira leaned toward the window, cracked an inch and whispered, You hear everything, don't you? The wind rustled the shutters. Everything, yes. What I repeat is the difference. Then repeat. Silence stretched, long enough for her heartbeat to notice. Then, the Jarl bargains with more than men. His letters fly north, to the ones who live where light never quite arrives. Giants with frost in their tongues. They will come. Eira frowned. Why would they want a weaver? Not you. The cloth. A door is valuable, but a door in the wrong hands lets the wrong things through. Exactly. She pulled the chest closer. Inside, under the blue twine, the trap lies stirred. It pulsed, faint and ugly, like a heart that never belonged to a body. She pressed her palm to it. Who sent you? The wind leaned close. Ask carefully. Lies answer truth with hunger. Eira whispered, Show me. The cloth rippled. Cold burned her skin. For a blink she saw a hall lit by blue fire, a man silhouette tall as arrogance, antlers carved into every beam. His mouth moved, not words, but numbers. And behind him, a shadow that looked like it was waiting for permission to breathe. She yanked her hand back. The chest slammed shut on its own. That's not a man, she muttered. Not anymore, the wind agreed. Hours passed. The fire in her chamber dimmed. The ale soured untouched. Eira sat with shuttle in hand, weaving small strips, testing tensions, whispering to herself. Each pattern a question. What can I trap? What can I bend? What will bend me back? At some point, the door rattled. Not a knock, a push. Too soft for guards, too rude for servants. Eira slipped the silent pocket from her coat and pinned it to the frame. The sound died instantly. No footfalls, no breath. Then a huff. Cold mist pressed to the crack under the door. The wolf. Eira held still, shuttle tight. The mist swirled, tested the floor, then recoiled as if stung. The wolf growled low, frustrated, and the sound cracked through the pocket like stone through glass. Then silence again, and its weight patted away. The wind sighed, relieved. He wanted to taste your cloth. And he tasted your refusal. Wolves don't forget flavors. Near dawn, footsteps returned, human this time. The Jarl's man opened the door without knocking. His coat was still perfect, his smile still borrowed. "Lady Eira," he said, mocking the title. "The Jarl waits. Bring your loom." She stood, calm. "Do I look like furniture to be carried from room to room?" He smirked. "You look like opportunity." "Funny," she said, lifting the loom. "That's exactly what I think when I see thieves." His smile twitched, but he stepped aside. The wolf wasn't in sight, yet the hall's air felt heavier, as if it had chosen to walk behind her instead of ahead. And the wind, ever eager for drama, whispered in her hair. "Today, he will ask you to weave not a door, but a chain. Say yes, and find out who he means to bind." Eira tightened her grip on the shuttle. "And if it's me, then break the loom across his smile." She almost laughed. Almost. The Jarl's hall woke with a hunger that smelled of smoke and ambition. Men filled benches, horns clinked, and every antler on the wall seemed to lean closer, eager to witness what would be demanded next. At the far end, the Jarl sat like a storm wrapped in furs, his crown of polished bone catching every stray beam of light. His smile was carved wide, the kind that promised feasts and delivered funerals. The wolf lay at his feet, more shadow than beast, breath curling into pale frost that no one else dared see. "Eira of the loom," the Jarl said, "today you will weave me a chain." The hall went still. Men glanced at each other, some grinning, some pale. Chains were things of iron, wood, law, not wool. Eira tilted her head, fingers brushing the shuttle at her side. "For what prisoner?" The Jarl's grin deepened. "Not what? Who?" He leaned forward. The wind. A murmur rolled through the benches. Some laughed nervously. Others stared, uneasy. Only the wolf stirred, its ears flicking as if insulted. Eira arched a brow. "You want me to bind the wind?" "Yes. To leash it. To make it speak only when I ask. Carry only the words I choose. Imagine, girl, no secrets on the coast, no whispers against me, no storms but the ones I command. A kingdom without treachery. A kingdom without truth," Eira said softly. The Jarl slammed a fist on his armrest. "Truth is mine to declare." The wolf growled, frost spreading across the floor. Men shifted uneasily, muttering. The wind coiled around Eira's ear, sharp and quiet. "Say yes. Learn his hunger. Then decide whose leash breaks first." Eira's lips curved in the faintest smile. "Very well, Jarl Arn. I will weave your chain. But no, every chain remembers who forged it and who it first held." His grin widened, victory glittering in his eyes. "Then begin." The loom was set in the hall. Threads stretched like nerves across wood. Eira worked slowly at first, her hand steady, shuttle darting. The cloth grew in strips of gray, dark as storm sky, woven with faint lines of blue that flickered like lightning in miniature. The hall grew quieter. Men leaned forward, breath caught. The wolf rose, circling closer, nostrils flaring. The Jarl whispered, "Yes, bind it." Eira's fingers never faltered. But her mind whispered otherwise. "I am not binding the wind. I am teaching it how chains taste." She wove memory into the weft. The stubborn laughter of her village, the sigh of boats that refused to sink, the whisper of gulls confessing their crimes. Every thread was a defiance. When she was done, she held up the strip. It gleamed, heavy though thin, humming faintly with a voice the hall could not name. The Jarl stood. "Excellent. Where does it fasten?" Eira smiled, soft and sharp. "Wherever the wind decides to sit." He reached for it. The wolf lunged faster, teeth sinking into the cloth. Frost burst across the floor. Drafts whipped through the rafters. The chain sang, a note too pure, too wild. The wind howled into the hall, rattling shields, scattering antlers. Men clutched tables, shouting. And in the middle of it all, Eira whispered to the wolf, "Now you know what leashes taste like. Do you prefer them?" The wolf froze. Its eyes glowed pale, not in rage, but in recognition. It let go. The chain fell, coiled on the floor, like a question no one wanted to answer. The Jarl roared, face red, crown rattling. "Traitorous beast." The wolf snarled at him, low, warning, no longer entirely his. And the wind delighted hissed in Eira's ear. Good. You've unfastened something. Chains bind two ways, and you've broken one. The Jarl's roar split the hall like thunder through rotten beams. His hand shot to the hilt of his sword, a broad blade carved with runes no one trusted. The wolf crouched low, ears pinned, eyes burning pale. Frost steamed off its breath. Frosting benches, splitting mugs in men's hands. "Obey me," the Jarl bellowed. His crown of antlers rattled with the force of it. "I fed you. I named you. You are mine." The wolf growled, not in rage, but in refusal. Its breath churned colder, the hall trembling with the weight of disobedience. Eira bent and lifted the half-woven chain. Threads of storm hummed in her hands. "Careful, Jarl," she said. "The wind remembers what it tastes. And wolves, they remember too well." The guards hesitated, torn between loyalty and fear the thing now snarling frost across their boots. The wind slid into Eira's ear, sly and quick. "He thinks chains bind one way. Show him otherwise." She raised the strip high. The loom sang as if recognizing its child. The wolf's eyes flicked to her hand, then back to the Jarl. "Wolves," Eira said clearly, her voice cutting through the noise, "are not owned. They are agreed with. And your agreement, Jarl Arn, just expired." The wolf lunged, not at her, at him. The Jarl's sword came free, iron singing. Frost and steel clashed, sparks flying. Men shouted. Benches overturned. Antlers rattled from the walls. The hall erupted into chaos, fear, fury, awe. Eira slipped back, weaving as she moved. Her shuttle darted, the chain lengthening. Threads snapping into place like lightning caught mid-laugh. The cloth grew not into leash but into mirror, gray-blue surface rippling like water and wind. The wolf slammed the Jarl against his own throne. Antlers cracked, splinters flying. He shoved back with the flat of his blade, roaring, "I made you." The wolf's snarl was answer enough. Eira snapped the shuttle shut. The cloth rippled, and the air in the hall split sideways. For an instant, two halls existed. One with men scrambling, another with echoes of them, shadows caught mid-motion. She stepped between them, safe in the seam. The wind rushed around her, pleased. Good. A door and a mirror. Now choose where it opens. Eira breathed. Steady. Not for him. Not yet. For the wolf. She slapped the cloth against the floor. It flared, a doorway of rippling stormlight. The wolf's head snapped toward it. For a moment, pale eyes locked with hers. "This isn't a leash," she whispered. "It's a choice." The wolf bounded, through. Its body vanished in the shimmer, leaving frost exploding across the hall like a broken promise. The doorway snapped shut, cloth curling limp in her hands. Silence. The Jarl staggered, breath steaming, sword shaking in his grip. His throne lay splintered, crown askew. Frost clung to his beard like mockery. Eira lowered the cloth. "You wanted the wind chained. Now you have a hall without it." Murmurs rippled among the men. Fear, admiration, doubt. The Jarl's eyes burned. "You think you've won, girl? You've loosed my hound into the world. Wherever it runs, I will follow. And when I find it, I will find you." Eira smiled, tired and sharp. "Then may you spend your life chasing what will never kneel." That night, the wind circled her in the quiet guest chamber. "You've broken his leash. The wolf runs free." "Where?" she asked. "Everywhere. Anywhere. Wolves on the wind go where lies are fat. Which means your village is no longer safe." Eira's chest tightened. The cloth in her hands quivered. "Then tomorrow we something else." "What?" She looked out the night, at stars cold as iron, at clouds sharp with secrets. "A road. Because if I stay, he'll burn everything behind me. And if I go, maybe I find a wolf first." The wind purred. Mortals are at their best when running headlong into trouble. Eira laughed softly. "Good. Then tomorrow I'll be excellent." Morning broke on the coast with gulls laughing at things no one else found funny. The village stirred, nets dragged, boats argued against ropes. But under it all, whispers. The kind that start in firelit halls and wash up on doorsteps before dawn. They say she wove a chain. They say she unchained it. They say the Jarl's wolf is gone and she's to blame. Eira pulled her loom frame onto her back, tied the chest with a blue twine tighter, and kissed her cottage door once, like farewell. The wind tugged her braid. "You can stay." "No," she said. "If I stay, they'll learn to fear me. And if they fear me, he'll own them without lifting a finger." The wind sighed. Mortals and their guilt, always heavier than their boots. At the edge of the village, children followed, wide-eyed. One boy asked, "Are you going to war?" "No," Eira said. "War comes whether you invite it or not. I'm going to find something before it finds you." "What?" She smiled, sad and sharp. A wolf with bad manners. They laughed, not knowing laughter was the first kind of prayer. She took the cliff path, high above restless sea. The fjord yawned wide, the Jarl's banners already pulling tighter in the distance. Ravens followed overhead, black punctuation on a sentence not yet finished. At a bend in the trail, the steward appeared, pale, wrinkled, carrying parchments as if they'd shield him. "You can't just leave," he panted. The Jarl will chase me anyway," Eira said. "Better to give him exercise." "You don't understand," he stammered. "He signed you already. On the rolls. In his court, you are his." Eira paused, watching him tremble. "Then he'll learn something today. Names on paper are lighter than wind." The steward sagged, parchment fluttering from his hands. "He'll burn for this." "Then let him burn," Eira said. "Fire's honest. More than most men." By noon, she reached a headland where it had all begun. Loom humming, threads whispering, sea foaming below. She set the frame, fingers steady though her heart beat a drum of fear and defiance. "What road?" the wind asked. "A crooked one," she said. "One the Jarl can't follow without losing his boots." She wove quickly gray, pearl, sea green. The cloth stretched wide, rippling with horizon. It smelled of salt, of pine smoke, of far-off mountains. A road not of stone but of listening, the kind that appears only to those who admit they're lost. When she tied the final knot, the air shimmered. The headland split sideways, revealing a pale path of light curving into distance no map owned. The wind hummed. A road of secrets. Brave. "Foolish," she corrected. "But fools travel further than kings." She stepped forward. The path rippled underfoot, threads of sea and sky bending into steps. Behind her, the village shrank, voices fading. Ahead, laughter echoed faintly. Not hers. The wolves. Eira tightened her grip on the shuttle. "Wait for me," she whispered. "I'm coming." And the road closed behind her like a secret too valuable to share. The secret road wound like a ribbon of pale light, rising and falling above cliffs and marshes, never quite touching the earth. Each step Eira took sent ripples through it, like walking across a pond that didn't remember how to sink. Behind her, the village had already vanished. Roofs swallowed by distance, voices faded into memory. Ahead stretched nothing but haze and sky, stitched together by threads only she could see. The wind danced at her shoulder. "This is your cloth," it said. "Every choice you've woven so far. Every secret you've let slip." "Then it's a fragile road," she murmured. "All roads are," the wind replied. "Mortals just pretend stone is stronger than breath." By noon, clouds thickened. They pressed low, gray and heavy, muttering to themselves. The road bent through them, and Eira walked blind, hearing only the echo of her own steps. Each sound stretched, then doubled, until she realized she was hearing more than footsteps. She stopped. Voices whispered in the fog. Some familiar, some not. A child's laugh. Hers, long ago, playing near Titterpools. Her father's voice, humming while mending nets. Then another, colder. The Jarl, roaring in his hall, promising that she belonged to him. Eira's chest tightened. Why do I hear this? The wind hushed. Because roads made of secrets, remember the ones you'd rather not. She pressed on, though her pulse raced. The fog thickened further, and shapes moved within it. Figures half glimpsed, stitched from memory. Her mother's face, stern and kind. The wolf's pale eyes, bright as frost. The steward's trembling hands. One shape lingered longer than the rest. Tall, cloaked in gray, antlers shadowing its head. Its voice rasped, chains break. But Det does not. Eira froze. That's not memory. No, the wind whispered uneasily. That's intrusion. The figure reached toward her, hand like smoke, fingers dripping frost. The road beneath her feet trembled. Threads groaned, as if ready to snap. Eira seized a shuttle from her belt and struck the road itself. The threads shimmered, weaving tighter, humming with defiance. The figure shuddered, pulled back, dissolving into mist. The fog thinned. The whispers faded. Only the sea remained below, restless, honest. Eira exhaled. So even the road isn't safe. Nothing woven ever is, the wind said. That is why it matters. Toward evening, the haze lifted. The secret road descended into a vast forest, pines crowding together like gossipers. The air smelled of sap and soil, rich and damp. Shadows stretched long, whispering promises of night. Eira stepped off the shining road. The moment her boots touched earth again, the path shimmered and folded, vanishing into the sky. She was alone. The wind curled close, quieter now. He knows you're gone. The Jarl, his ravens search already. Eira adjusted the loom on her back. Let them search. The road doesn't stay still. True, the wind admitted. But men don't need roads to bring fire. She stared into the forest, trees swaying as if they recognized her. Somewhere deeper inside, a sound moved, not bird, not beast. A low, steady rhythm, like a drum that had learned patience. The wolf? Or something worse? She stepped forward anyway, because the only road left was the one that led into trouble. The forest greeted her with silence, not the gentle kind, but the watchful kind. Branches leaned overhead, tangling into a canopy that let through only thin threads of light. Moss muffled her steps, roots twisted like questions that didn't want answers. Eira paused, fingers brushing the shuttle at her side. Too quiet. The wind swirled low. Forests keep their own gossip. You're not the first to walk here, and you won't be the last. Step lightly. So she did. She stepped as if every root were listening, every leaf waiting to repeat her mistakes. By midday, she reached a clearing where the air was different, softer, heavy with something older than rain. At its center stood a figure, tall and gaunt, wrapped in furs patched with frost. His skin was pale as moonlight, his eyes gray and slow, like stones that remembered glaciers. A Jotun. He leaned on a crooked staff, head tilting as she entered. So, the weaver walks where she shouldn't. Eira's pulse jumped, but she kept her voice steady. And giants loiter where mortals eat their berries. Strange times. He chuckled, a sound like ice breaking on a river. Sharp tongue. Mortals usually bow first. I'm walking. That's polite enough. The Jotun studied her loom. You carry threads that don't belong to you. They belong to no one, she said. Then they belong to whoever takes them. His fingers tapped the staff. The Jarl sends ravens north, promising cloth that opens walls. He boasts of a mortal who binds storms. I don't bind, she said. I bargain. Semantics, the giant rumbled. Words are chains too. We've worn them longer than your kind has had fire. Eira set her loom on the ground, hands light on its frame. If you came to claim me, you'll need to keep behind a wolf with sharper teeth. That made him laugh again. Snow shook loose from branches above. Then his eyes narrowed, voice dropping low. Careful, girl. The frost can listen. If they smell your threads, they'll cut your tongue to keep them quiet. She arched a brow. And you? What do you want? The Jotun leaned closer, breath cold. A test. He reached into his furs and drew out a strip of leather, blackened, stiff. Weave this into your cloth. If the wind still answers, you're worth more than gossip. Eira frowned. The leather wasn't just leather. It pulsed faintly, like it remembered a heartbeat. The wind hissed. Don't touch it. That's skin, but not a man. She straightened. I weave what I choose, not trophies. The Jotun's smile thinned. Then perhaps you're not worth the chase. Or perhaps, she said, You're testing the wrong loom." She lifted her shuttle, passed it once. The air rippled, and the strip of leather in his hand twitched, curling like it wanted to escape. The Jotun blinked, startled. For the first time, he looked unsure. "You see," Eira said quietly, "even your trophies don't want you." The forest rustled. Something else was listening. Not giant, not mortal. A shadow moved among the pines, too quick for roots, too silent for beasts. The Jotun straightened, staff thudding. Others follow. Not mine. Not yours. If you value your road, girl, walk it fast. He turned and vanished between trees, his laughter echoing like cracking ice. Eira stood alone again. The wind curled close. "You passed." "Barely. Giants love tests and hate failing them. But someone else hunts here. Something colder." She lifted her loom, eyes narrowing into the trees. "Then let's see if it prefers to chase or to be caught." And with that, she walked deeper into forest where shadows moved like teeth. By dusk, the forest grew restless. Pines creaked as if whispering to one another, and the air thickened with smoke that wasn't from fire. Eira paused, hand on her shuttle. The wind stirred. "He's coming." The Jarl, not yet in person, but his birds are ahead of him. She looked up. Between branches, black shapes wheeled in uneven circles. Ravens, dozens of them, their cries sharp as knives. Each feather glinted faintly, as though dipped in ink too proud to dry. "They don't just watch," Eira murmured. "They listen." "And repeat," the wind confirmed. "Every word they hear flies home faster than boots can run." She quickened her pace, weaving as she walked. A strip of cloth grew, narrow and pale, patterned with jagged lines like cracks in ice. She tied it between two trees. The air shimmered. The first raven dove. Its wings clipped the cloth, and it vanished. Not fallen, not broken, gone. The others shrieked, circling higher, wary. Eira smirked. "Go tell your master, doors swing both ways." The wind chuckled. "Careful. He'll hear you even if they don't." "Good," she said. "Let him know I'm not whispering." By nightfall, she reached another clearing, this one foul with boot prints and broken branches. Men had been here recently. Too many, moving fast. She knelt, tracing the grooves. Iron-shod, heavy. Soldiers. The wind curled close. "He's sending a hunt." "Dogs?" she asked. "Worse. Men who think they are dogs." Eira stood, jaw tight. "Then I'll teach them manners." She set the loom against a fallen log, threading quickly in the dim light. Gray, green, streaks of silver. She whispered as she wove. "This is not a chain. This is not a leash. This is a maze." When she tied the last knot, the forest shifted. Trees leaned, paths bent. Shadows stretched into false directions. The clearing dissolved into 12, then 20, then more. Boot steps thundered nearby. Voices barked orders, angry, confused. "She's here. Find her." Branches cracked. Men shouted as they ran in circles, crashing into roots, tripping over their own shadows. Eira smiled, slipping quietly away. "Hunt yourself for a while." The wind laughed, delighted. "You weave mischief like you were born to it." "Mischief is cheaper than war," she replied. Still, unease pressed at her chest. The Jarl would not stop. Every raven, every soldier, every promise of antlers pointed her way. And somewhere ahead, the wolf ran free, carrying hunger she might never control. She touched the shuttle. "If he thinks he can chase me through trees, let him. The forest doesn't take kindly to strangers." The wind whispered, sharp as pine needles, "Strangers, yes. But some trees already know his name, and they bow when he calls." Eira's stomach turned. Then we cut down their silence before he buys it. She walked deeper into the night, where owls stared too long and branches bent in directions they shouldn't. And behind her, the sound of hunting horns rose, carrying through the dark like death's coming due. The horns faded behind her, swallowed by forest, but their echoes still chased Eira's ribs. She pressed on until the trees thinned, roots slipping into soft earth that smelled of damp moss and secrets long kept. Ahead, the land opened into a wide lake, black glass under the moon. The surface didn't ripple with wind. It listened. Eira stopped at the water's edge. Her reflection stared back. Tired eyes, tangled hair, loom heavy on her back. But then the reflection shifted, warping. It smiled when she did not. The wind hissed. Careful. Lakes gossip worse than skies. They show truths, but only the ones they find entertaining. Eira crouched, fingers brushing the surface. I didn't ask for truth. I asked for silence. The lake rippled once, twice, then stilled. Her reflection changed again, this time into the wolf. Pale eyes, frost breath, teeth gleaming. It stood where she knelt, staring through her, waiting. Her chest tightened. Where are you? The wolf's reflection growled, but the sound came from behind her. She spun, shuttle in hand. Only trees. Shadows. Silence. When she looked back, the wolf was gone. In its place, the Jarl, crown of antlers, grin carved in bone. He leaned close to the surface, as if whispering from the other side. You can run, girl. But water carries faster than feet. The lake swallowed the image, leaving only her reflection again. Eira shivered. She pulled the loom forward, threading quickly. Gray for the night, green for the forest, silver for the water. Her fingers moved faster than her fear. This is not a door, she whispered. This is a curtain. When she tied the last knot, the cloth shimmered. She laid it across the lake like a veil. The surface dulled, no longer reflective, no longer watching. The water sighed, disappointed, but yielded. The wind chuckled. You just told a lake to mind its manners. I told I'm not here for amusement, she muttered. But silence rarely lasts. From the trees, boots cracked twigs. Torches flared. The Jarl's men burst into the clearing, horns still at their belts, eyes scanning. There, by the water, Eira rose, loom in hand. The cloth still rippled faintly over the lake. She gripped the shuttle tight. You want me? She called, then stepped forward. But the water doesn't like interruptions. The first man charged. He splashed into the shallows, and the lake seized him. His scream cut short as black water pulled him under. No ripple marked his passing. The others froze, terror in their eyes. Eira lifted the shuttle. Choose wisely. I don't weave rescues. The men fled, torches scattering light like frightened insects. The wind whistled low, almost admiring. You didn't lie. You didn't warn them either. I'm tired of warnings, she said. The Jarl sends hunters. Let him learn what it means when prey weaves a chase. She turned back to the lake. The veil still floated, thin, fragile, humming with memory. She touched it once more. Keep your secrets, she whispered, but keep mine first. The lake stilled. The cloth dissolved into mist, fading into air, and somewhere in the forest, a horn sounded again, closer this time, hungrier. The horn's echo faded into the trees, but another sound rose in its place, softer, steadier. Pads on soil, breath like winter fog. Eira froze, shuttle tight in her grip. You followed me. From the treeline, the wolf stepped into moonlight, larger than memory. Its fur shimmered with frost, each breath curling pale mist. Its eyes glowed white-blue, not cruel but bottomless. The wind hissed in her ear. Not leashed, not owned, but not free. Be careful. The wolf padded closer, silent as snowfall. Its gaze fixed not on her face, but on the loom strapped to her back. Eira steadied herself. If you came for chains, I already broke them. The wolf growled, not angry, more like amused. Then it moved, swift, sudden, snapping its jaws at her side. She twisted away, but too late. Its teeth caught the hem of her coat. The sound wasn't fabric tearing. It was memory. Her chest convulsed. She gasped, and the world shifted. She wasn't the forest anymore. She stood in her cottage, fire warm, loom humming in the corner. Her father laughed outside, nets slapping against stone. A child's voice, hers, sang by the hearth. Eira staggered. No, this isn't now. The wolf appeared in the doorway, silent. Its eyes glowed brighter, jaws dripping frost. It had bitten her coat and pulled the truth she carried inside. The wind whispered, frantic, "He tastes secrets. Careful or he'll eat what you are." Eira gritted her teeth. "Then let's see if he chokes on mine." She seized the loom. Threads quivered, already alive. She wove fast, gray for ash, gold for firelight, blue for her father's laughter. Her shuttle clattered, weaving memory into cloth. The cottage shimmered, walls trembling. The wolf prowled closer, jaws parting, eyes fixed on her threads. She slammed the cloth across the doorway. It flashed, a barrier of her own childhood. The wolf lunged. It struck the cloth, and the cottage shook. Her father's voice faded. The fire dimmed. The child's song stuttered. But the cloth held. The wolf drew back, breath steaming, eyes narrowing. It wasn't angry. It was curious, testing. Eira panted. "You want my secrets? You'll starve. I already spent them keeping myself alive." The wolf tilted its head. Then, in a voice not quite human, not quite beast, it whispered, "Not all." Her blood ran cold. The vision shattered. She was back in the forest, knees in moss, shuttle trembling in her hand. The wolf stood a few steps away, silent, watching. The wind hissed. "He knows. Something you haven't told even me." Eira swallowed hard. "Good. Let him keep it. Maybe it'll weigh him down." The wolf's ears flicked. Then, without another sound, it turned and padded into the trees, frost melting in its wake. Eira pressed her palm to her chest, breath ragged. The wind curled close, softer now. What did he take? She closed her eyes. "Enough to remind me I can still be afraid." And somewhere deep in the woods, the wolf's howl rolled long and low, not of hunger, not of rage, but of recognition. The howl lingered long after the wolf had vanished into the trees. It carried through the forest like a thread stitched from bone, pulling Eira forward whether she wished it or not. She walked, boots sinking into moss, shuttle clutched like a blade. Each step was a bargain with fear. The wind hovered at her shoulder. "He's not running from you. He's leading you. Question is, to what? To whom?" Eira muttered. The forest deepened. Pines gave way to birches, pale and ghost-like, their trunks etched with scars that weren't made by knives. The air grew sharper, cold sinking into her lungs as though the night itself disapproved of her breathing. Ahead, the trees thinned into another clearing. At its center, 3 figures. They weren't men, not fully. Tall, narrow, cloaked in frost. Their faces were white masks, carved smooth, no mouths to speak with, only hollow eyes, burning faintly blue. In their hands, long spears of ice that never dripped. The wolf sat among them, calm, its breath fogging the air. Eira froze. The wind whispered, urgent. Messengers, servants of the Jotner courts. They carry silence, and they trade only in commands. One of the masked figures raised its spear, not in threat, but in greeting. The sound that followed wasn't spoken. It rang in Eira's skull, cold and steady. "We heard of the Weaver." She gritted her teeth. "Then you've heard too much." Another figure stepped forward. Frost cracked underfoot. "The Jarl boasts. He sends ravens north. He promises us your cloth." Eira's hands tightened on her shuttle. "I don't weave for giants." "All threads weave for giants." The voice pressed into her bones. "Storm's roots, river's time. You are thread. You will come." The wolf's pale eyes fixed on her, unreadable. Not friend, not enemy. Witness. Eira set down the loom. Her fingers moved fast, threading gray and white, blue streaking to like veins of frozen water. The spears hissed in response, frost forming at their tips. "This is not a leash," she said softly. "Not for you. Not for him. This," she tied a knot, "is mine." She raised the cloth. It gleamed like ice, but when the frostmen stepped closer, their feet sank into it as though the ground had betrayed them. Roots surged upward, binding ankles, weaving tighter the harder they struggled. The wolf growled low, frost steaming from its jaws, but did not move. The figures tilted their heads, unbothered, as if their capture were expected. Their voices pressed harder, 3 against 1. The Jarl fails. The wolf betrays. The weaver runs. The giants wait. Eira's chest burned. Then wait longer. She tore the cloth. The roots snapped. The clearing convulsed, and the frostmen dissolved into shards of snow, scattering like broken promises. Only the wolf remained, staring at her. The wind shivered against her skin. You've made enemies in courts that don't forgive. Then I'll weave apologies when I'm dead, she said. The wolf padded closer. Its gaze flicked to the torn cloth, then back to her. A low rumble shook its chest. Not threat, not praise. Something in between. Then it turned and slipped into the forest again. Eira exhaled, heavy, her breath curling white. So that's it. I'm hunted by men giants and my own secrets. The wind chuckled grimly. Congratulations. You're officially important. She packed her loom, shoulders aching. Important people get killed. Yes, the wind agreed. But the best ones take everyone's attention with them. And far off, deeper in the woods, another horn sounded. But this one wasn't the Jarl's. It was older, colder. The horn rolled through the forest like iron dragged across stone. Not the Jarl's hunting call. This sound was deeper, older, carrying frost in every note. The trees shuddered. Branches bowed. Even the owls fell silent. Eira's pulse kicked hard. That's not him. The wind pressed against her cheek. No, this one belongs to the frost courts. The giants don't send messengers twice, unless they mean to collect. The wolf lingered at the tree-lean, eyes glowing. Its breath fogged the clearing in steady puffs. Watching, waiting, Eira set the loom down. Her fingers hovered over the threads. If I hide, they'll find me. If I reveal myself, they'll take me. Choices are just disguises for consequences, the wind murmured. But you do have cloth. Cloth is ruder than choices. Boot steps broke the undergrowth. More figures approached, taller than men, cloaked in pelts of white and gray. Their faces weren't masks this time. They were stone carved with ice, lips pale, eyes glinting like frozen rivers. Each carried a weapon that breathed frost into the night. The leader stopped a few paces away. His voice scraped like icicles against rock. Weaver, Eira straightened. If you've come for cloth, you're late. I just used it to bury your servants. A ripple of amusement crossed their ranks, like a glacier smiling, slow and deadly. The leader raised a hand. You carry threads that belong to storms. You will weave for us, or you will be unspooled. The wolf's tail flicked. Its gaze flicked from giant to Eira, neutral. The wind hissed, urgent. We've something now. Not for them. For you. Eira's hands moved fast. She pulled threads of gray and green, streaked them with silver. The loom thrummed, wood creaking under her grip. This, she whispered, is not a door. This is not a chain. This is a shadow. She tied the knot, and the cloth shimmered black, thin as mist. She swung it around her shoulders. It clung weightless, and the night bent. Her figure blurred, fading into the forest dark. The giants stepped forward, but their eyes slid past her, puzzled, angry. They searched the clearing, spears stabbing at shadows. Eira slipped sideways, silent, unseen. Her breath caught in her throat, but the cloth held, her body woven into the night itself. The wolf turned its head. Its eyes found her, cutting through the veil as if she glowed. It didn't betray her. It only watched. The leader snarled. Frost hissed from his mouth, freezing bark to glass. Find her. She cannot vanish. Eira whispered under her breath, clutching the shuttle. Can I? The wind chuckled, smug. Mortals, always underestimating their own impoliteness. The giant spread to the trees, furious, heavy steps sinking into roots. Eira moved opposite, slipping deeper into the forest. Every stride was a theft of seconds. When she finally stopped, far from their reach, she pulled the shadow cloth tighter. Her hands shook. Her chest burned. Too close, she whispered. Close as a point, the wind said. It means you matter. She leaned against a birch, listening to the frost horn echo again, farther this time but not gone. They would not stop. Neither would the Jarl. She touched the cloth at her shoulders. Then I won't either. And somewhere, faint but clear, the wolf howled again, not warning, not threat, invitation. The forest finally quieted, though quiet was no comfort. Eira pulled the shadow claw from her shoulders and folded it, her fingers trembling. The loom leaned against her hip, humming faintly like it, too, needed rest. But the wind didn't let her pause. It coiled around her, insistent. Do you want to know what your choices bought you? Her chest tightened. The village? Yes. She closed her eyes. Show me. The air shifted. The trees bent, their branches weaving together into a frame. Within it, mist gathered, swirling. Images flickered. Rooftops, nets strung to dry, children chasing gulls. Home. Then the Jarl's ravens descended. Black shapes tore across the sky, blotting out the sun. Men in armor followed, boots crushing doorsteps. Torches flared. Her neighbors ran, scattering like startled fish. No, Eira whispered. The wind pressed sharper. They are not dead, not yet, but fear is a leash, and he holds it tight. In the vision, the steward shouted orders, waving parchment as though excuse a fire. By command of Jarl Arn, the weaver is ours. Her village is forfeit until she returns. Children cried. Dogs barked. Smoke rose, black and bitter. Eira's hands shook around her shuttle. I left so they'd be safe. Mortals always think running spares others, the wind sighed. But absence is its own kind of fire. She stabbed the shuttle into the soil. Then I'll undo it. I'll weave a way back. Not yet. The wind cut in. If you return now, you'll bring the Jarl and the giants both down on their roofs. They will burn faster. Wait. Her teeth clenched. Wait while they suffer? Wait so that when you return, you don't just douse the fire, you tear the torch from his hand. The vision wavered, then dissolved. Only forest remained. Eira's breath came hard, uneven. She whispered to herself, I'll come back. I swear it. The wind hushed, almost kind. Then weave that vow. Cloth remembers better than words. She pulled threads, gray for ash, gold for firelight, blue for the sea she left behind. Her hands worked quickly, tears stinging her eyes. When she finished, she held a narrow strip that pulsed faintly with warmth. She tied it to her wrist. A promise, she said, that I'll return, that they'll live to see it. The cloth tightened, sealing the vow. The loom hummed in approval. The wind whispered, pleased. Good. Now your oath walks with you. Break it, and it will break you. Keep it, and even gods will have to respect it. Eira exhaled, then let them learn respect. Far away, another horn blew, not frost this time, not men's brass. Something else. Trickster laughter rode the note, sly and bright. The wind stiffened. Oh no! Eira frowned. What now? Chaos with a smile. Mischief with teeth. Loki has heard your name. The horn's echo slithered away, leaving only laughter, thin, sharp, too close. Eira spun, shuttle raised. The forest stood quiet, but the laughter bent through its trunks, as if the trees themselves giggled. The wind muttered, sour, trickster, don't trust a single word. Who? Eira demanded. Branches parted. A man stepped through, tall and lean, hair red as flame, eyes bright with the kind of joy that belonged only to liars. He wore no crown, no furs, no armor, just a smile wide and amused. Eira, the wind weaver, he said, bowing low as of mocking ceremony. I've heard whispers of you. Well, not whispers exactly, more like shouts. You're becoming very loud. Eira tightened her grip on the shuttle. And you are... He grinned. Loki, at your service. Or not, depends on the mood. The wind hissed. Run. But Loki wagged a finger. Oh, don't run. Not for me. I don't hunt. I watch. I prod. Sometimes I applaud. And sometimes he leaned closer, his grin widening. I borrow. Eira stepped back. What do you want? What everyone wants, Loki said brightly. A good story. And you, My dear mortal, are writing one faster than even I can lie about it. Giants chasing you, a Jarl frothing with rage, a wolf with taste for secrets delicious. He circled her, light-footed, hands clasped behind his back. But the best part? You weave doors. Do you know what doors are, girl? Invitations. And I love parties. Eira kept her voice steady. If you're here for cloth, you'll leave with empty hands. Loki clapped, delighted. Sharp. Oh, I like you. No, Wonder the Wind won't shut up about you. He flicked a glance upward. The branches groaned as if embarrassed. Then he lowered his tone, playful but edged. Listen closely, Weaver. The Jarl isn't your biggest problem, nor the giants. It's the ones who haven't noticed you yet. The high ones, the shining ones. Odin loves a tool. Freya loves a treasure. And you, he gestured at her loom. You're both. Eira's stomach turned. So were you? A warning. A warning, a lie, a joke. Sometimes all three. He winked. But today, I'm generous. I'll offer you advice. She narrowed her eyes. Free. Ha! Loki laughed so loud the trees shook. Nothing is free. But think of it as credit. You'll pay me back when it's funniest. He leaned close, whispering, Never weave a door without an exit. One day, even gods will knock. And they don't like waiting. Before she could reply, he was gone. Just gone. No rustle. No flash. Only air that smelled faintly of smoke and mischief. The wind groaned. Disaster. Pure disaster. Eira stared at the empty clearing, her shuttle trembling in her hand. Maybe, or maybe he's right. If gods are watching, I'll need exits everywhere. She shouldered her loom, pulled her coat tighter, and walked deeper into the night. Her vow burned warm on her wrist. Her claws hummed with restless memory, and her name, her mortal fragile name, now traveled with giants and gods alike. And the wolf's howl rose once more, far off, calling her into roads she hadn't yet woven. The forest road was narrow, roots knotted like veins, earth damp with the memory of rain. Eira walked with her shoulders aching, the loom pressing against her back. But it wasn't the weight of wood that bent her spine. It was a vow. The strip of cloth tied at her wrist pulsed faintly, warm against her skin. Each beat matched her heart, but heavier, older, like another life had been sewn into her flesh. She stopped beneath a leaning pine and touched the fabric. It tightened, not painfully, but with insistence. The wind whispered low. That's the oath. You tied it yourself. Now it ties you. I only promised I'd return, she muttered. Promises don't care how small they start, the wind replied. They grow teeth. They bite if you starve them. Eira exhaled slowly. The cloth hummed again, and for a blink she saw the faces of her neighbors in the smoke of her mind. Children clutching nets, old women stirring pots, her father's weathered hands. The vow burned brighter. She kept walking. By midday the air thickened, not with fog this time, but with silence. No birds, no insects, no rustling. The forest held its breath. Eira frowned. Too quiet again. The wind stirred nervously. Not quiet. Listening. Who? Before it could answer, her wrist flared hot. She gasped. The vow pulled tight, dragging her arm toward the north. She staggered, nearly falling. It's pulling me. Of course, the wind said grimly. A vow is a compass. Your village bleeds, and your thread feels a stain. She straightened, jaw tight. Then I'll follow. The road narrowed into marshland, reeds whispering against her legs. Black water mirrored the sky, broken only by the ripples of frogs that weren't there. Each step squelched, cold mud sucking at her boots. Her wrist burned again. Faces flashed once more. The steward shouting, the Jarl's men torching roofs, children coughing in smoke. She bit her lip hard enough to taste iron. The loom hummed against her back. The threads within seemed to itch, eager, waiting. The wind coiled around her ear. You could weave here, anchor the vow, lighten it. Eira stopped in the marsh, staring at the water. Anchor it. Yes, give it shape. A promise without cloth is a ghost. A promise woven becomes law. Even the gods respect law, if only to twist it. Her pulse quickened. She set the loom in the reeds. Her fingers worked, trembling but precise. Gray for ash, green for moss, silver for truth. She whispered with each pass, I will return, I will return, I will return. When she tied the knot, the cloth glowed faintly, then sank into the water. The marsh rippled once, then stilled. The weight on her wrist eased, though the heat remained. Eira exhaled shakily. Better. The wind was quiet for a moment, then said, softer than before, Now you've done it. You've carved your vow into the world. Break it, and the world will carve back. Eira gathered the loom. Then I won't break it. Her wrist pulsed again, steady as a drum. Not a burden now. A reminder. And somewhere far ahead, a raven's cry broke the silence. Not any raven. This one called her name. The raven's cry faded, replaced by another sound. A voice humming, low and cracked, somewhere ahead. Not bird, not beast. Human. Eira followed the thread of melody through the trees, until the forest opened into a hollow. There, by a fire that smoldered more smoke than flame, sat an old man wrapped in tattered furs. His beard spilled like driftwood, and his one good eye gleamed sharp despite the ruin of his face. In his lap rested a harp with half its strings broken, yet his fingers coaxed a tune from what remained. He looked up as she entered. Well, the weaver comes walking. Eira froze. You know me? He smiled with gaps where teeth had abandoned him. Everyone knows you. Some just pretend they don't. Sit, girl. Roads are long and songs are short. She sat cautiously across the fire. The harp's tune bent into silence. The old man studied her loom, the strip of cloth tied at her wrist, the shadows clinging to her shoulders. Threads everywhere, he murmured. You've tangled yourself nicely. Eira bristled. I didn't ask for tangles. Nor did the Norns, he said with a chuckle. But look where they ended up. At the name, the wind hissed in her ear. Careful, he speaks of them too easily. Eira frowned. You hear them? Echoes, he said. Whispers in the dark, the scrape of shears on stone. I'm no seer, girl, just a skald too stubborn to die when the mead soured. But I can still tell when threads are pulled hard. He reached into the smoke, as though plucking from it, and drew out a thin twig. He twisted it between his fingers until fibers frayed. This is you. He tugged, it snapped. Breakable. Then he tossed it into the fire. But woven. He plucked at his harp. The broken strings hummed together. Discordant but strong. Woven, you bend storms. The trick is knowing whether you weave yourself into the cloth, or the cloth into you. Eira's chest tightened. I don't have time for riddles. My village. Burns slower than your fear, he interrupted. His one eye glittered. That vow on your wrist pulls you north. You think you chose it. But tell me, girl, did you? Or did the Norn smile when you tied the knot? She stared at the glowing strip. It pulsed once, as if listening. The old man leaned closer. His voice dropped to a whisper that crept like smoke. Every oath is a thread, and every thread is on their loom. Eira's fingers tightened on her shuttle. Then I'll cut their loom. The old man laughed so hard the harp buzzed, spoken like a mortal who hasn't seen their shears. But boldness is music, girl. Keep it. He strummed again and the fire leapt. Shadows swayed on the trees. For a heartbeat, Eira swore she saw 3 women there, faceless, tall, their hands busy with threads that stretched into infinity. Then they were gone. The old man leaned back, satisfied. North, south, east, west, it doesn't matter. Your road is already woven. But, his smile sharpened, you still get to choose how much noise you make while walking it. Eira rose, unsettled. Then I'll be loud enough they can't ignore me. He nodded, plucking one last sharp note. Good. The gods hate being ignored. The wind curled close, uneasy. He's mad, but he's not wrong. Eira walked on, the vow burning steady at her wrist, the Norn's phantom loom whispering at the edge of thought. The forest thinned into rocky ground, stones jutting like broken teeth, roots clutching them as if reluctant to let go. Eira slowed her pace, every sound sharp against the silence. The wind coiled close. He's here again. Not himself, but his claws. Men marked with runes. Eira's wrist burned. The vow pulsed hard, dragging her forward. Yet every instinct screamed to stop. She crouched behind a boulder and listened. Voices, harsh, confident, spread out. She's near. The Jarl want her alive, but don't be gentle. Their boots scraped stone. Torches flared, spitting sparks into the night. And in their hands, not just spears, but strips of leather carved with symbols that glowed faintly blue. The air around them hissed, restless. The wind spat the word. Bindruns, traps for breath. They'll try to catch me through you. Eira gritted her teeth. Then let's not make it easy. She slipped her loom down, fingers moving fast, threading gray and red, jagged as a heartbeat. Her shuttle darted in silence, cloth growing in narrow strips. "This isn't a door," she whispered. "This isn't a chain. This is a tangle." The first man spotted her. "There!" He lunged forward, throwing a rune strip. It hissed through the air, glowing bright. Eira flicked her cloth. It snapped midair, threads twisting like briars. The rune strip tangled, writhed, then turned back, striking its caster's chest. He screamed as the glow wrapped him, freezing his limbs in place. The others cursed. "She's twisting them." More strips flew. Eira wove faster, her cloth lengthening, curling, snaring the runes as they came. Sparks and frost burst, scattering across the rocks. The men hesitated, fear gnawing at their bravado. Eira rose, her voice cold. "Tell your Jarl. Every knot remembers who tied it. Bind me, and you'll bind yourselves first." They faltered, but one stepped forward, taller than the rest, his leather marked with antlers. His rune strip burned brighter, etched deeper, humming with authority. He smirked. "Then let's see if your threads cut royalty." He hurled it. The strip streaked like lightning, faster than the others. Eira's shuttle snapped once, twice, too slow. The rune struck her wrist. Pain seared. The vow flared against it, cloth on cloth, two bindings colliding. For a moment, the world went white. She screamed, knees buckling. The rune sizzled, trying to smother the vow, but her promise held. The strip blackened, curling to ash. The man's smirk died. Impossible. Eira staggered upright, sweat beading her brow. Her voice shook, but it carried. "I already belong to one binding. No other can claim me." The vow at her wrist pulsed, defiant. The men stepped back, suddenly unsure. The wind laughed, fierce and wild. "Good. Even chains fear vows. Now make them run." Eira raised her shuttle, the loom humming like thunder. "Run," she ordered. And they did. The hunters scattered, but not far. Their torches bobbed among the rocks, voices snapping like whips. "She's a witch. Hold the line. Surround her." Eira crouched low, breath sharp in her chest. Her wrists still burned from the clash of rune against vow. The vow pulsed steady now, but the pain lingered like a warning. The wind pressed against her ear. "They're frightened, but fear makes men foolish. They'll come again. You'll need more than cloth that tangles." Eira unstrapped the loom, fingers trembling only slightly. "Then let's weave them something louder than their courage." She pulled gray threads for shadow, red for fire, blue for breath. Her shuttle darted. The pattern formed quick and jagged, like teeth biting their own tongues. "This," she whispered, "is not a door. This is not a chain. This is a voice." The cloth shimmered. When she lifted it, the night itself seemed to bend. She tied it between two rocks. The air rippled, waiting. The first hunter came close, torch high. "She's here." But the cloth caught his voice, twisted it, spat it back deeper and louder. "She's here," the rocks bellowed. The words echoed down 3 different gullies at once. Torches turned, men swarmed the wrong paths. Another hunter shouted, "Cut her off from the west." The cloth seized that too, flinging across the clearing. "West, west, cut her off." Men clashed into each other, confusion bursting like sparks. The forest filled with their own voices, doubled and warped, commanding them into chaos. Eira smiled grimly. Shout all you want. I'll be the one listening. The leader with the antler-marked rune cursed, realizing too late. He hurled another strip. It hissed, glowing, aimed straight at the cloth. Eira snapped her shuttle, severing a thread. The woven voice screamed, not in pain but in mockery, and exploded into echoes. The rune strip burned out, smothered by noise. Men stumbled, covering their ears. Torches dropped, fire sputtering in the dirt. The wind howled with laughter. You've turned their orders into riddles. Lovely in politeness. Eira pulled the cloth down, folding it fast. Riddles last longer than blades. Silence fell again, broken only by ragged breathing and the crunch of boots retreating. The men fled into the dark, their horns unblown, their courage spent. Eira exhaled, steadying herself. She tied the folded cloth to her belt. Voices are just another thread. Easy to weave if you don't care who they strangle. The wind chuckled. Careful, girl. Words have longer legs than men. These ones will chase you all the way north. Her vow pulsed at her wrist, hot as fire. She looked toward the dark horizon. Good. Let them chase. I'll be louder than their fear. The night stretched deeper, cold sinking into Eira's bones. She walked through the forest spine, shadows clinging to her boots, the loom a stubborn weight on her back. Her vow burned steady at her wrist, a reminder that each step north was not choice but debt. Then the trees hushed. Not silence, expectation. The wolf padded from the dark. Its fur shimmered with frost, breath curling white, eyes burning pale as ever. It moved like it owned the shadows, like the night had leashed itself to its paws. Eira stopped, pulse drumming. You again. The wolf approached, slower this time, circling her. Its gaze fixed on her wrist, where the vow glowed faintly through cloth. The wind hissed. Careful. He smells it. Eira lifted her arm. This is mine. Not yours. Not the Jarl's. Not anyone's. The wolf growled low. Not anger, not hunger. Curiosity. It stepped closer, teeth flashing. Before she could move, it snapped at her wrist. Agony flared. The vow pulsed wild, light bursting from the cloth. Eira staggered back, clutching her arm, but the wolf held on, not tearing, not biting through flesh. Testing. The cloth shimmered, alive, resisting. Threads pulled tight, glowing hot. The wolf's breath froze the air, its frost clashing with her fire. The wind shouted, He's measuring you. Don't break. Eira gritted her teeth. I won't. She slammed her shuttle against the ground, threads snapping into sparks. The vow flared brighter, burning the wolf's muzzle. It released her with a snarl, leaping back, eyes flashing with something too close to respect. Eira dropped to her knees, panting. Her wrist burned, but the cloth held. No tear, no break. The wolf watched silent. Then it lowered its head, almost a bow, before vanishing into the trees. The wind coiled around her, ragged, unsettled. He tasted your oath. Now he knows what it binds. And so do you. Eira pressed her wrist to her chest. The vow still pulsed, steadier now, stronger. I felt it. It's more than promise. It's law. Yes, the wind whispered. And wolves love law. They break it. They chew it. Or sometimes they guard it. Eira looked into the darkness where the wolf had gone. Her breath shook, but her voice was steady. Then let him guard, because if he doesn't, I'll weave a law sharp enough to bleed even him. The forest rustled, as if amused, and somewhere far ahead, a raven croaked her name. The raven's cry dwindled, replaced by something worse, laughter, sly and curling through the trees. Eira stiffened. The wind groaned. Not again. Trickster's back. From the shadows, Loki stepped lightly into view, red hair catching moonlight, grin sharp enough to cut. He clapped his hands once. Marvelous show, Weaver. A wolf testing your oath? That's drama. That's poetry. You're a living saga, and sagas are my favorite toys. Eira rose to her feet, shuttle firm in her grip. I'm not your toy. Not yet. Loki agreed cheerfully. But give me time. He circled her like a flame around dry wood, voice teasing but edged. So, the Jarl hunts you, the giant stalk you, the wolf nips your wrist, and still you walk north, burdened by a vow that will strangle you if you falter. Very heroic, very foolish. Eira glared. Say what you came to say. Loki leaned close, lowering his voice to a conspiratorial whisper. I can help you keep your promise. A shortcut, a bend in the thread. Why weave a whole road when you can stitch a bridge? Eira narrowed her eyes. And the cost? His grin widened. Only a thread. One small thread. The wind hissed in warning. Don't. Every thread he takes, he turns into a knot you'll never undo. But Loki waved dismissively. Oh, don't listen to the breeze. Winds are fickle. I, at least, admit I'm untrustworthy. Isn't honesty about lives refreshing? He flicked his fingers, and between them appeared a shimmering scrap of cloth, woven from colors Eira didn't know names for. See this? A shortcut. Step on it, and the road will fold. You'll stand in your village before dawn. Vow fulfilled. Neighbors saved. Easy. Eira's chest tightened. The vision of her burning home flickered in her mind. Her wrist burned hot. Tempted. Loki asked sweetly. She clenched her shuttle. A vow means nothing if I cheat it. Loki gasped, feigning outrage. Cheat? No, no. It's still your thread. Just nudged. Bent. Nudges aren't cheats. They're creativity. Eira shook her head. Creativity that smells like fire. For a moment, Loki's grin faltered, eyes flashing cold. Then he laughed again, clapping his hands. Bold girl. Dangerous girl. You'll regret refusing me. But oh, how fun it'll be to watch. He twirled, the strange cloth dissolving into smoke. Very well. Walk your long road. But remember, shortcuts don't vanish. They wait, and they grow teeth. He vanished into the night, laughter echoing long after. Eira sank back against a tree, sweat beading her brow. Her wrist pulsed steady, hotter than before, as if the vow itself approved. The wind whispered, You chose well. But refusing him once doesn't mean he's gone. Tricksters always find another thread. Eira exhaled. Then I'll weave mine stronger. Her vow glowed faintly in reply. And somewhere far above, another raven stirred, wings heavy with more than feathers. The forest stretched thinner now, trees standing farther apart, their crowns ragged against the stars. The air shifted, sharper, colder, edged with something that wasn't night. But wait. Eira slowed, pressing her palm against her wrist. The vow burned steady, but beneath it another pressure stirred, heavier, older. The wind whispered, uneasy. He hears you. Eira frowned. Who? The answer came not in words, but in silence. Ravens, dozens of them, perched along the trees. Their black eyes glimmered like beads of obsidian, their feathers catching faint starlight. None moved. None croaked. They only watched. The wind shivered. Odin. Eira's chest tightened. No, I wanted my village, not him. Vows climb ladders, girl, the wind murmured. Yours reached high. He loves high places, and he loves tools sharp enough to draw blood. The ravens shifted in unison, a ripple of black wings. One dropped down, landing on a branch level with her face. Its beak opened, but the voice that came wasn't a bird's. Eira. Her knees nearly buckled. The sound was low, carved from stone, carrying weight like a mountain on fire. I didn't ask for you, she whispered. The raven's head tilted. And yet here we are. The loom on her back hummed, as if bowing to the name. Threads inside quivered. Her vow pulsed hot, clashing with the presence pressing in from all directions. Eira gritted her teeth. I won't weave for him. The raven's wings twitched. All threads weave for me. Storms, wars, kings, whispers. You are no different. The wind shrieked in her ear. Careful. Don't defy him so openly. But Eira cut in, her voice sharp. I belong to my vow. Not to you. Not to giants. Not to any god. The raven was silent. The forest bent beneath the weight of waiting. Then, softly, it said, "We shall see." It launched into the sky, wings thundering, and the flock rose with it. The trees shook as a storm of feathers vanished into the night. Eira collapsed to her knees, gasping, sweat cold on her brow. The wind rushed frantic around her. "You're mad." You looked him in the eye. She clutched her shuttle. "I don't care how high he stands. If he wants me, he'll have to tear me from my promise first." The vow pulsed hard, like approval, like defiance. And for the first time, the wind didn't argue. The forest grew ancient around her. Pines gave way to oaks, and then to something older still. Trees whose trunks twisted like serpent of wood, their bark scarred with runes too worn to read. Moss carpeted the ground thick as fur. The air grew heavy, damp with memory. Each step sank into centuries. Eira slowed, her wrist burning, the vow pulsing harder, as if sensing a threshold. This place. The wind whispered. Hushed! Roots older than names. Careful. Here, even silence is ears. She stopped at the base of a massive tree. Its trunk stretched wider than a hall, its branches vanishing into shadow above. The bark was pale, etched with lines that seemed to move if she stared too long. The wind curled close. It has seen your kind come and go. Scalds called the listener. If you touch it, it will answer. But answers are never gifts. They are debts. Eira pressed her palm to the bark. It was cold, but not dead. It throbbed faintly, like a pulse deep in the earth. Her breath caught. Visions spilled. Generations of her village. Faces she knew and didn't, weaving nets, singing lullabies, mourning graves. The listener had watched them all. Then the visions shifted. The Jarl's men torching rooftops. The wolf prowling. Loki's grin. Odin's raven whispering her name. Her knees weakened, but she held on. Show me more. Show me what's coming. The bark shuddered. Images flared too fast, too bright. Children groaned, battles spilling across snow, her loom glowing like fire. And her own face, older, carved with lines, still weaving. But the last vision froze her blood. Her village burning again, this time not by men but by giants. Shadows taller than trees tore roofs like kindling, and at the center, her vow snapping. She recoiled, ripping her hand away. The wind hissed. I warned you. It shows what it chooses, not what you want. Eira's chest heaved. Then I'll change it. If I saw it, it means it isn't fixed. The wind's tone sharpened, or it means the loom already waits for you to fail. She set her loom down, fingers trembling but sure. Then I'll weave louder than their loom. She pulled strips of bark, pale and tough, threading them into her cloth. The loom groaned under the strain, but the threads held. This, she whispered, is not surrender. This is memory made weapon. The cloth pulsed, runes flickering across its surface. It smelled of smoke, sap, and tears. Eira tied it around her shoulders. The weight nearly crushed her, but strength surged through her bones. Every voice, every face, every memory of her people clung to her now. The wind trembled. You just wove your bloodline. Be careful, girl. If you fall, they fall with you. Eira's jaw tightened. Then I won't fall. She stepped back into the clearing. The listener loomed behind her, silent once more. But she knew its roots still carried her vow deeper into the earth, binding her tighter to futures not yet written. Her wrists pulsed hot. Her shoulders burned heavy. And the path north glowed faintly, as if lit by unseen eyes. The wind whispered, quiet and grave. Now the high ones truly watch. Eira lifted her shuttle. Let them. I'm not done yet. The night pressed colder as Eira left the listener behind. Her new cloak weighed heavy, every step echoing with the memories of her people. Each breath felt borrowed from centuries. The wind hovered close but hushed, as though even it dared not disturb what followed her now. Then wings. Ravens gathered again, spilling across branches, blotting out stars. Their black eyes gleamed, thousands of beads in the dark. They did not croak, did not shift. They waited. One descended, slow and deliberate, landing on a stone before her. Not just any raven. Larger, feathers edged with silver, one eye glinting brighter than the other. Eira froze. The bird opened its beak. The voice that came was not echo, not illusion. It carried weight enough to bow the trees. Eira, Wind Weaver. Her chest tightened. Don't call me that. The raven's head tilted. The name is not mine. It is yours. And now it is known. She clutched her shuttle. I belong to my vow, not to you. The raven's wings spread wide, shadowing the ground. All vows belong to me. Oaths sworn on soil, blood, or breath. All thread their way to my hall. You eat defiance, but defiance too is mine. Eira's wrist pulsed, the vow burning bright, clashing with the raven's presence. Her knees buckled, but she stood firm. I will return to my village, she said, voice raw but steady. And nothing, not giants, not wolves, not gods, will take that vow from me. The raven's eye glowed brighter, fierce as stormfire. It leaned closer. We shall test that, little weaver. We shall test it soon. Then, with a thunder of wings, it launched skyward. The flock followed, blotting out the moon before vanishing into the night. Eira collapsed to one knee, sweat running cold down her spine. The wind rushed to her, sharp and frantic. You've done it now. You spoke against him with his eye on you. Do you understand what that means? She rose, clutching her shuttle. Her voice shook but did not break. It means if the All-Father wants me, he'll have to fight my cloth first. The vow pulsed hard her wrist. The cloak of memory burned against her shoulders, and the forest seemed to lean back, giving her room. The wind whistled, both awed and afraid. Then the game is set. The gods have spoken your name. Eira looked north. Her voice was a whisper, fierce and trembling. Then let them hear it again. And the night carried her vow onward, louder than horns. The cloak weighed on her shoulders like an anchor of centuries. Every step forward dragged voices with it. Lullabies, prayers, shouts over stormy seas. Her people's memories weren't quiet. They clung, whispering and wailing, tugging her heart in 100 directions at once. Eira stumbled, knees biting the soil. She pressed her palm against the bark-woven cloth. I can't carry all of you. The wind curled sharp around her ear. You wanted strength. You took it. Strength isn't like girl. She shook her head. It's too much. The cloak pulsed warm, heavy with her vow. In its weave, she heard her father's laugh, her neighbor's cough, the cries of children who once chased gulls along the shore, and deeper, older voices, ancestors she'd never known, singing in languages her tongue couldn't shape. Her breath hitched. The weight wasn't just cloth. It was a graveyard with roots. She staggered to her feet, dragging the shuttle against the ground. If I break under this, then their memories die with me. The wind sighed. Or worse, they use you. Memory is greedy. It doesn't like silence. It will shout through you if you let it. Eira froze. You mean my own people could turn against me? Not their fault. Their threads. You pulled them. Now they tug back. Her wrist burned, the vow pulsing in rhythm with the cloak. She gritted her teeth. Then I'll weave them tighter. If they want to tug, they'll pull me forward, not down. She set her loom on a flat stone, fingers trembling. From the cloak, she pulled a single strip of bark thread, glowing faintly with memory. She threaded it anew, weaving it with gray for ash and silver for moonlight. This, she whispered, is not a burden. This is a path. The loom hummed, low and resonant. The cloth grew narrow and bright, like a line of starlight. She tied it to the cloak. Instantly, the weight shifted. Still heavy but steady, the voices aligned, no longer clamoring but marching, one step after another, like a song of resolve. Her breath steadied. The wind chuckled, impressed. Clever. You've turned noise into rhythm. Careful, though. Marching songs can lead you to war. Eira pulled the cloak tighter around her shoulders. Then let them. At least now they walk with me, not over me. She moved north again, stronger though slower. The forest thinned and distant firelight flickered. Not torches of hunters. Campfires. She crept closer, hiding behind brush. Around the flames sat a band of wanderers. Thin, weary, armed with scraps of steel and bone. Their cloaks were patchwork, their eyes hollow with exile. One lifted his head, gaze sharp despite hunger. He pointed straight at her hiding place. "Come out, Wind Weaver." Eira stiffened. The wind whispered, alarmed. "They know your name." She stepped forward into the firelight. The exiles rose to their feet, some in awe, others in fear. Their leader bowed his head. "We've been waiting. The sagas said you passed this way." Eira's throat tightened. "Sagas?" The man smiled bitterly. "Yes, and in every one you either save us or doom us." The fire crackled, sparks rising into the night. The exiles studied Eira with eyes that carried too much hunger, not just for food, but for meaning. Their leader, a gaunt man with streaks of white in his hair, stepped forward. His cloak was torn, his boots patched with rope, but his voice carried weight. "You were the listener's bark. No mortal walks with that unless the roots themselves bend." Eira pulled the cloak tighter. "I didn't come for sagas. I came for a village that needs me." The man's lips curled into a grim smile. That's what the sagas said too. The exiles murmured among themselves. Some bowed their heads in reverence. Others spat into the dirt, wary. One woman, her face scarred by frostbite, stepped close enough that the firelight carved hollows in her cheeks. "You'll weave us home, won't you?" "That's what you do. Threads, paths, doors." Eira's chest tightened. "I weave to keep my vow, not to lead others." The scarred woman's voice cracked. "We've been hunted from the south, the east, even the mountains. The sagas say the Wind Weaver will give us a road no Jarl can follow." The word sagas burned in Eira's ears. She turned to the leader. "Why do you cling to them? Stories don't save anyone." His one good eye gleamed. "No, but they make men walk when their feet are broken." The wind hissed in her ear. "Careful. They'll try to bind you with their hope. It weighs heavier than chains." Eira swallowed hard. She looked at the exiles, their hands trembling, their faces raw with cold and despair. A part of her wanted to scream that she couldn't carry them. She could barely carry herself. But the cloak on her shoulders pulsed. The voices of her people stirred, mixing with those of strangers, whispering insistently. Her wrist burned. The vow throbbed louder. The leader dropped to one knee, pressing his palm to the ground. "If the sagas speak true, then we follow you. If they lie, then let us die following. Either way, we've nothing left to lose." The others knelt too, some reluctantly, some desperate. Dozens of eyes fixed on her, expecting. Eira's throat felt raw. "You'll follow me into storms, into giants' jaws, into God's games? You'll follow me even if it kills you." The scarred woman whispered, "We already died once. This is just a long after." Silence fell heavy. Eira lifted her shuttle, firelight glinting off its wood. She pointed it north. "Then walk. But know this, I weave for my vow first. If that road spares you, so be it. If it damns you, I warned you." The exiles bowed, murmuring prayers. The wind groaned. "You just became their saga. Congratulations." Eira muttered under her breath. "Then let it be a loud one." Far away, horns sounded again. Not the Jarls alone, but many, rolling like thunder across the valleys. The leader of the exiles lifted his head. "He knows you've gathered followers. He'll send more than men this time." Eira's jaw tightened. "Then we'll make the hunt regret its hunger." And her vow burned brighter, as if pleased with her defiance. Far to the south, in the Jarl's Hall, horns blared and drums pounded like the heartbeat of war. The rafters shook with the weight of antlers hung as trophies, each one glistening in torchlight like silent witnesses. Jarl Arn stood at the high seat, his crown of bone and horn casting jagged shadows across the floor. His raven shrieked from the beams above, restless, hungry. Before him knelt warriors, not just soldiers this time, but chosen. Each bore scars carved into their chests, painted with blood that steamed as if fresh. Their helms sprouted antlers bound with iron. In their fists they gripped axes etched with runes, the blades humming with promises that smelled of fire and ash. The Jarl raised his hand. Silence crashed down. "She weaves defiance," he growled. His voice carried like storm over ice. "She tangles my men, twists my runes, mocks my name." The warriors struck their chests, the sound like thunder. She gathers followers, Arn continued, his lip curling. Beggar exiles kneel to her. Wolves bow their heads. Even gods whisper her name. The hall murmured, uneasy. A mortal spoken of in sagas before her death was no small thing. Arn slammed his fist against the throne. No more. He gestured, and servants dragged forward a cauldron brimming with thick black liquid, blood mixed with ash. The warriors leaned forward, eyes gleaming. One by one, they dipped their hands into cauldron, smearing the mixture across their antlers, across their blades. The runes flared bright and cruel. By blood, they chanted. By horn, they echoed. By the hunt, we claim her. The ravens screamed, wings battering the rafters. Arn grinned, teeth sharp as broken stone. Find the wind weaver. Bring her to me bound, or bring me her cloak torn. Either will feed my hall. The warriors roared. At the back of the hall, the steward whispered nervously, My Jarl. She carries the listener's bark. That is no mortal cloak. Arn turned on him, eyes blazing. Then I'll hang it on my wall beside the rest. He strode to the fire pit, thrusting his axe into the flames. Sparks leapt, catching the smoke. She thinks her vow makes her strong, but vows are snares. I'll snap hers like a twig and drink the marrow. The warriors howled in answer. Above them, the ravens circled tighter, black eyes glinting with secrets they had gathered from the north. The Jarl lifted his burning axe. Hunt begins at dawn. The exiles move with Eira through the thinning forest, their torches dim to avoid notice. Each step north pressed heavier, though the cloak on her shoulders steadied her stride. The vow pulsed warm, her wrist aching like a heartbeat that belonged to more than her. The wind stirred uneasily. The Jarl sharpens his hunt. You'll hear his horns before dawn. Eira's jaw tightened. Then we'll stay ahead. A sound broke the silence. Not horns, not men. Pause. Heavy, deliberate. The exiles froze, weapons raised, fear rippling through the group. From the dark stepped a wolf. Its eyes glowed pale, its fur rhymed with frost. It padded close, silent but commanding. The exiles muttered prayers, some dropping to their knees. Eira stepped forward, shuttle in hand. If you've come to test me again. The wolf ignored her words. It turned north, pausing, glancing back with eyes that gleamed like moonlit ice. Then it padded onward, slow enough for them to follow. The wind whispered, almost grudging, He guides you. The exiles hesitated. One woman clutched Eira's cloak. It's a beast. It'll lead us into its jaws. Eira met the wolf's gaze. Her wrists burned hotter, her vow pulling in the same direction. She exhaled. No, it knows the path. Follow. Reluctantly, the exiles obeyed. They moved after her, the wolf always just ahead, never too far, never too close. The land shifted. Forest gave way to stone. The ground grew steep, jagged ridges cutting the night sky. Snow flecked the air, faint at first, then thicker, heavier. The wind hissed. The gray mountains, old bones of the world. Giants once walked here. Eira pulled her cloak tighter. The bark threads warmed against her skin, holding back the cold. Her breath smoked white as she whispered, Then we'll walk where they left their shadows. At a narrow pass, the wolf stopped. It turned, staring at her, frost drifting from its jaws. Then it lifted its head and howled. The sound shook the cliffs, echoing deep into stone. Snow cascaded from ledges. The exile stumbled, clutching rocks, eyes wide with terror. Eira held firm. Her shuttle pressed her chest. The howl didn't strike her ears alone. It struck her vow. Her wrist flared, pulsing with the same rhythm. For a heartbeat, she and the wolf shared the same thread. Then it lowered its head and continued forward, slipping into a cleft in the mountainside. The leader of the exiles frowned. A cave? Eira nodded. Not a cave. A door. The wind whispered, uneasy. Doors in mountains lead deeper than men should walk. Eira gripped her loom. Then we'll weave our own way out again. And with the wolf as guide, she led her followers into the dark. The mountains swallowed them whole. The cave's mouth yawned wide, and the air within was colder than the snow outside. The exiles huddled close, their torches sputtering as if afraid of the dark they fed. Eira led, her shuttle steady in her grip, the wolf padding ahead without pause. Its eyes glowed faintly, casting pale light on jagged stone. The deeper they walked, the clearer it became. This was no common cavern. The walls were etched with patterns, threads of mineral that glittered faintly, weaving through rock as though stone itself had been loomed. The wind whispered, awed. These halls, they were shaped by hands older than men, older than giants. Eira touched the wall. The threads within pulsed faintly under her fingers. They're alive. Not alive. Remembering. The wind corrected. Stone keeps better than flesh. But flesh listens louder. The passage opened into a vast chamber. Torches flared against its height, revealing pillars like looms carved from the mountain itself. Across them hung cloths, ancient, brittle, but still humming with power. Threads of silver, gold, and black stretched taut, as though waiting centuries only to be seen again. The exiles gasped, dropping to their knees. The halls of the first weavers, one whispered. Eira's breath caught. She stepped closer to one of the great cloths. Its weave was dense, shimmering, every knot a rune she couldn't read. Her shuttle trembled in her hand, yearning. The wind hissed. Careful, those threads are not yours. Touch them wrong, and they'll bind you until the mountain cracks. But the wolf sat at the chamber's edge, calm, watchful, as though it had led her here for this moment. Eira lifted her hand. Her fingers brushed a single thread. A spark jolted through her, vision flaring bright. She saw wars fought long before her birth, rivers carved by cloth, even gods bending knees to fabric they did not weave. She staggered back, heart racing. This is power enough to break oaths. The wind's voice sharpened. Or, to make them unbreakable. Choose wisely, girl. Your vow already drags God's eyes. If you stitch it into these threads, not even death will cut it. Her wrist burned, pulsing hard against the thought. The cloak on her shoulders hummed, the voices of her people rising in chorus. Eira clenched her jaw. Then I'll weave not for power, not for gods, for them. She pulled bark thread from her cloak, steady hands threading it into the ancient loom. Silver met bark, old met new. The stone groaned, but the cloth shimmered, alive with both past and present. The exiles bowed, murmuring prayers. Their leader whispered, "The wind weaver stitches her own saga into the bones of the world." Eira ignored him, focused on the cloth. She whispered as she tied the knot. "This is not surrender. This is not theft. This is a warning." The cloth pulsed once, light spilling across the chamber. Shadows bent. The mountain itself seemed to breathe. The wolf growled low, not in threat, but in acknowledgement. And far above, horns echoed faintly, their sound reaching even here. The Jarl's hunt was climbing. The chamber's light faded, leaving only the hiss of torches and the faint shimmer of ancient threads. The exiles whispered among themselves, voices trembling with awe and fear. Eira stood still, her hand lingering on the cloth she had just woven into. The bark thread pulsed faintly where it joined the silver, like a vein grafted into stone. Her wrist ached with the weight of what she had done. The wolf lay nearby, silent, eyes fixed on her. Then laughter, soft, sly, slithering down from the pillars as though the stone itself had decided to mock her. Eira's stomach clenched. Not here. The wind groaned. Of course here. Mischief always finds cracks. From the shadows above, Loki dropped lightly to the ground, landing with a grin and a bow. His red hair caught the torchlight like fire, his eyes bright with amusement. "Marvelous," he said, sweeping his arms wide. "The wind weaver stitching her vow into the bones of the world. Do you know how rare that is? Even gods envy cloth like this." Eira steadied her shuttle. "Leave. Leave." Loki clutched his chest as though wounded. "But I brought you advice. And temptation, of course. Both free. For now." He strolled past the pillars, trailing a finger across one ancient thread. Sparks leapt beneath his touch. "You see these threads? They're not just cloth. They're levers. Tug the right one, and rivers change course. Not another, and a kingdom drowns in snow. He turned, grinned sharp. Steal a single strand, and you could rewrite your saga. Your village, safe forever. Your Jarl, erased like chalk and rain. Even Odin's ravens would choke on your name. The exiles murmured, eyes wide, some daring to hope. Eira snapped, I don't steal. Loki's smile widened. No, you borrow. Everyone borrows. Even gods. Do you think Odin wove his wisdom himself? No, he plucked it from wells and trees that weren't his to touch. He leaned close, whispering like poison wrapped in silk. Be smarter than him. Take one thread. Just one. The cloak on Eira's shoulders pulsed hot. The vow on her wrist burned. The ancient cloth before her hummed, as though listening. She gritted her teeth. A vow kept by theft is no vow at all. Loki's eyes gleamed. For a moment, the grin slipped, replaced by something colder, sharper. Then he laughed, throwing his head back. Delicious! You resist again. How boring you'd be if you didn't. He spun, flicking his fingers. The ancient threads quivered, singing with faint echoes. Fine, walk your honest road. But roads are dull. Stories need teeth. He faded into shadows, laughter echoing long after his body vanished. The exiles trembled, muttering. Some looked at Eira with relief, others with doubt. Their leader stepped forward, voice low. You should have taken it. One stolen strand might have saved us all. Eira lifted her shuttle, her voice hard. Or damned us faster. Thread stolen turn on the thief. The wolf growled softly, as if agreeing. The wind whispered in her ear. Be careful, girl. Doubt spreads quicker than faith. Even your followers might tug your cloth the wrong way. Eira pulled her cloak tighter. Then I'll weave louder than their doubt. But far above, the horns of the Jarl's hunt thundered closer, rattling stone. The mountain groaned. Horns blared from the slopes above, their echoes spilling into the caverns like rivers of iron. The exiles stiffened, clutching spears and knives too dull to matter. The wind hissed urgent in Eira's ear. The hunt is here. Many men, not just hunters, the Jarl's chosen, antler-marked, blood-bound. Eira pressed her palm to the stone wall. The ancient threads within pulsed faintly, answering her touch. Then the mountain will fight with us. The wolf growled low, frost curling from its jaws. It paced the edge of the chamber, restless, as if already sending the warriors closing in. Torches flared in the tunnels. Voices thundered. In here, the witch hides in the bones of the earth. Eira pulled her loom forward, threads trembling. She wove quickly, pulling gray for stone, black for shadow, silver for memory. Each pass of the shuttle sent tremors through the cavern. This, she whispered, is not a cloak. This is not a chain. This is a maze. The cloth glowed. When she tied the knot, the walls shuddered. Passages bent. Shadows stretched, curling into false doors. The cavern twisted, reshaping itself like clay under her will. The first of the Jarl's warriors stormed in, antlers painted with blood, axes blazing with runes. They roared, charging into the chamber. But the ground shifted, splitting beneath their feet. They tumbled into tunnels that hadn't been there a breath before. The exiles gasped. Some crossed themselves. Others whispered prayers to Eira. She stood firm, voice sharp. Stay close. My cloth knows the way out. Theirs doesn't. Chaos filled the mountain. The warriors stumbled through twisting passages, their horns echoing back at them, every shout returning as mockery. Some swung their axes as shadows, only to hit stone that crumbled beneath them, dropping them into pits. But the leader of the antler-marked warriors stood unshaken. His runes burned hotter, his eyes wild. He slammed his axe against the ground, roaring, "No cloth will bind me." The maze shivered under the strike. Cracks spread like lightning. Eira's wrist burned, her vow pulsing hotter. The cloak weighed heavier, her ancestors whispering in chorus. She wove faster, patching the cracks with strips of bark thread, reinforcing the maze with memory. The stone held. Barely. The leader snarled, searching the twisting dark. Wind Weaver, face me, or I'll tear your vow from your bones. The exiles looked to her in terror. Eira tightened her grip on the shuttle. Her voice rang through the maze. If you want me, hunt harder, but every step you take, my cloth will remember, and it will close on you. The walls groaned again, closing tighter around the antler-marked warriors. Their roars turned to curses, their curses to screams. The mountain swallowed them, stone folding like cloth. The exiles trembled in silence, staring at Eira as though she had torn the stars from the sky. The wind whispered, awed, you just turned earth into thread. That's not mortal work anymore. Eira's chest heaved, sweat dripping down her brow. Then let the gods see how mortal I can be. But the mountain wasn't done shaking. A deeper rumble rose, ancient and cold. The wolf growled, ears flat. The wind shivered. You've woken something. Giants listen when stone moves. The cavern quaked, dust drifting from the ceiling like snow. The exiles clutched each other, eyes wide, as the ground itself seemed to breathe. The wolf rose, hackles stiff, frost curling thick from its jaws. It growled, not at shadows, but at the very stone. Eira steadied herself against a pillar. What now? The wind whispered, tight with dread. Not men, not the Jarl. Something older. You shook the mountain, girl, and giants don't like their bones rattled. The stone split with a sound like thunder tearing the earth. From the darkness beyond the chamber, a figure emerged, towering, shoulders scraping the cavern roof, skin gray as granite veined with ice. His eyes glowed faint blue, like glaciers lit from within. The exiles fell to their knees, trembling. Some sobbed. Others pressed their foreheads to the stone. The giant's voice rolled through the chamber, deep and resonant, each word shaking dust from the walls. Wind Weaver. Eira's throat tightened. She lifted her shuttle, though her hand shook. You know my name. The giant stepped closer, each stride bending stone. The mountain told me. The threads told me. You woke the old looms with your bark and bone. He crouched low, vast face shadowing her. His breath was cold enough to sting. Serve me, he rumbled. Weave storms into spears, rivers into chains, cloth strong enough to bind gods. I will give you an army, a hall, a throne. The exiles gasped, some whispering fervent prayers. Their leader turned to Eira, eyes wide. Say yes, you could save us all. Her vow flared at her wrist, hot, pulsing against the giant's offer. The cloak on her shoulders grew heavier, her ancestors whispering sharp as knives. The wolf snarled louder, stepping between her and the giant, frost rising from its paws. The wind hissed in her ear. Careful. His promises weigh more than his fists. If you tie yourself to him, your vow will snap. Eira met the giant's glacier blue gaze. Her voice was steady, though her chest burned. I weave for my vow, not for thrones, not for giants. The giant's lips curled into something between a smile and a snarl. Defiance. He reached out, one vast hand hovering above her, fingers like boulders. Then prove it. Show me claws strong enough to cut a Jotun skin. Eira pulled her loom forward, threads quivering as if fearing what she demanded. She wove fast, gray for stone, red for fire, silver for defiance. Her shuttle clattered, her shoulders burning under the weight of the cloak. This, she whispered, is not a crown. This is not a leash. This is a blade. She tied the knot. The cloth shimmered, edges glowing bright as steel. The giant extended his arm. Strike. The exiles cried out in terror. The wolf growled low, waiting. Eira raised the cloth and slashed. The air split with light. The blade of thread cut across the giant's stone flesh. The cavern shook with his roar. Blue light spilled from the wound like fire trapped in ice. The giant stepped back, laughing through the pain. Good. Very good. You bite. He leaned close, eyes blazing. Then bite harder, Wind Weaver. Bite until the gods bleed. With that, he rose, towering once more and stepped back into the dark. The mountain rumbled as his presence faded, though his laughter lingered long after. The exiles stared at Eira in silence. Awe and fear braided into their gazes. The wind whispered, shaken, "You just cut a giant." And he liked it. Eira's wrist throbbed, her vow pulsing hot. She whispered back, fierce and trembling, "Then let them all see what I can cut." When the mountains stilled, silence fell heavy. The exiles clung to one another, whispering prayers to names Eira couldn't hear. The wolf sat at the chamber's edge, eyes glowing faintly, as if weighing her anew. Eira wiped sweat from her brow. Her arm trembled from the strike that had cut a giant. The cloth she had woven shimmered faintly still, edges frayed, smoking like steel cooled too fast. The wind whispered, low and sharp, "You've crossed a threshold. Giants bleed because of you. That sound will echo into halls you never meant to knock on." Eira, clench your shuttle. Let them hear it. I'm not done. But the night wasn't hers alone anymore. From the mouth of the cavern came the flap of wings. Not many this time, not the endless flock of Odin's host, but one raven, large as a wolfhound, feathers gleaming black with streaks of silver. It landed on a stone, fixing her with a single bright eye, and behind it stepped a man. He was tall, broad-shouldered, clad in mail that shimmered faintly with runes. His face was hidden behind a helm of iron, carved with a single eye that glowed the same pale blue as a raven's. In his hand, he bore a spear etched from point to butt with words older than fire. The exiles gasped, dropping to their knees. Some cried aloud, "Odin's man!" Eira's chest tightened. The wind hissed, urgent. An emissary, not mortal, not quite God. Runes carry him. He speaks with the All-Father's breath. The man's voice filled the chamber, steady as stone. "Eira, Wind Weaver, the All-Father has heard enough whispers. He sends me to see with his own eye." Eira forced herself upright, cloak heavy on her shoulders, wrist burning with her vow. "Tell him I belong to my promise, not to his hall." The emissary tilted his head. "All vows are his. All oaths walk to his table. You cannot weave against him." The raven croaked, wings beating once. The wolf growled, frost steaming from its jaws. Eira's voice sharpened. "Then let him come take me himself. I won't bow to shadows." The emissary raised a spear, its runes flaring bright. "Then prove yourself. Here, now." The cavern shuddered again. Torches sputtered. The exile screamed. Eira stood firm, shuttle in hand, the vow burning like fire on her wrist. The wind whispered, fierce and frightened both, "Careful, girl. This is no longer the Jarl's game. The gods are in the circle now." And in the stillness, she felt it, eyes watching from farther than stars, closer than breath. Odin was listening. The cavern silence split under the glow of the emissary's spear. Each rune along its shaft blazed like a star, their light crawling over the stone, over the exiles, over Eira herself. The raven flapped its wings once, the gust enough to snuff out half the torches. Darkness thickened, broken only by that spear and the faint frost curling from the wolf's jaws. The emissary's voice rolled, not loud but absolute. "Eira, Wind Weaver, your vow is strong. But vows are threads, and all threads not to the All-Father. Bow, and your oath will be his." Her wrist burned, the cloth pulsing, as if resisting command. She gritted her teeth. "I bow to no one but my promise." The emissary lowered the spear, its runes searing bright. "Then stand and break against him." He struck the stone floor with the spear. Light flared, racing across the chamber in runic lines that coiled toward her feet. The ground hissed, binding circles forming beneath her. The exiles cried out, shrinking back. Some pressed their foreheads to ground, others wept in terror. The wolf barked once, a sound like thunder cracking ice, but did not move closer. Its eyes burned, waiting. Eira staggered as the runes closed around her. Her vow flared hot, pushing against them. The cloth on her wrist hissed. Threads glowing red as fire clashed with blue light. The wind screamed in her ear. "Careful. His runes were carved from Yggdrasil's root itself. Mortal threads aren't meant to fight them." Eira fell to one knee, shuttle pressed the floor. "Then I'll weave where they can't cut." She worked fast, dragging threads from her cloak. Bark and memory, ash and silver. Her shuttle struck the stone, weaving over the glowing runes, knot for knot, line for line. This, she whispered, voice raw, is not surrender. This is not silence. This is my vow. The chamber shook. Her threads tangled with the emissary's runes, twisting, tightening. Blue clashed with red, ice with fire. The emissary's helm tilted. For the first time, his voice softened. You weave against Odin himself. Do you think that cloth will hold? Eira rose, cloak blazing with the weight of her ancestors. Her vow pulsed fierce at her wrist. It doesn't need to hold forever, just long enough to remind him I am not his. The emissary lifted his spear. Light burst brighter, blinding. The raven croaked once, wings beating. The wolf growled, frost thickening in the air. And in the heart of the clash, Eira's vow flared so bright it drowned even Odin's runes for a breath. The cavern walls groaned, stones splitting under the pressure of two powers colliding. The exiles fell prostrate, whispering prayers to whichever side would spare them. Eira screamed, driving her shuttle into ground, threads erupting like roots, and the runes shattered. The emissary staggered back a step, spear dimming, his helm tilted, as though listening to a voice she could not hear. Then, steady, he lowered his weapon. The All-Father is seen. He will not forget. The raven flapped its wings, and both man and bird dissolved into shadow, leaving only silence and the smell of smoke. Eira collapsed to her knees, chest heaving, wrist burning hotter than ever. The wolf padded forward, silent, staring at her with eyes that held neither pity nor scorn, only recognition. The wind whispered, trembling, you just wrestled Odin's will and lived. Eira lifted her shuttle with shaking hands. Then let him remember the taste of defiance. The cavern reeked of smoke and frost. Silence pressed hard after the emissary vanished, but the silence wasn't empty. It was filled with her cloak. Eira clutched it tight. The weight was heavier than ever, but not just weight, presence. The bark thread pulsed against her back, and suddenly, the voices of her ancestors no longer whispered. They spoke, a man's voice, deep and weary. Daughter, you carry us too far. Threads snap when pulled against gods. A woman's voice, sharp as flint. No, she weaves what we could not. Let her pull harder. Dozens joined in, overlapping, rising. Warriors, farmers, mothers, children, all speaking at once, their lives braided into hers. Eira stumbled, clutching her head. Stop. I can't. The wind swirled frantic. They're not stopping. You open the cloth too wide. Now they march through you. Her knees hit the stone. The exiles drew back in fear, watching her body tremble under the chorus. A boy's voice cried through her mouth, I drowned the fjord. Weave me dry. An old man's voice rasped, I froze in the field. Weave me warm. A mother wept through her lungs. My children starve. Weave them full. Eira gasped, her throat raw. Every word not her own. Her wrists seared, vow glowing like fire under skin. The wolf growled low, circling her, frost scattering from its paws. It snapped once at the air, as if biting at spirits no one else could see. Eira's eyes burned. She forced the shuttle into her palm, gripping it until splinters cut her skin. This, her voice wavered, layered with a dozen others. This is not their vow. This is mine. She staggered to her loom, hands shaking. Thread spilled from the cloak, wild and glowing. Her ancestors' voices surged louder, tugging every direction, demanding every fate at once. Eira slammed the shuttle down. You will walk with me, not through me. The cloth hissed, burning bright. She wove fast, each strike of the shuttle louder than the last. The voices screamed, then softened, pulled into rhythm. One by one they aligned, their cries turning to a chant. Not separate voices, but a chorus, a song of defiance, echoing hers. The exiles trembled, some crying, some crossing themselves. Their leader whispered, She carries the dead as well as the living. The wind whispered, awed, You've turned ghosts into thread. Not even the Nornas do that lightly. Eira stood, cloak blazing, eyes fierce. Her chest heaved with exhaustion, but her voice carried steady. Then let them all march beside me. Their strength will not break me. It will break what hunts me. The wolf lowered its head, finally, in something close to a bow. And outside the cavern, horns blared again, closer now, shaking the mountain with their hunger. Eira turned toward the sound, her cloak pulsing with hundreds of voices chanting as one. The horns outside grew nearer, echoing down the stone like waves pounding cliffs. The exiles pressed close to one another, their eyes darting between the dark mouth of the tunnel and Eira, whose cloak blazed brighter with every heartbeat. Then the cavern dimmed, not from torches dying, but from shadow, thick and unnatural, sliding down the walls like ink poured across stone. The exile screamed. The raven returned. It perched high on the cavern's arch, wings spread wide. Its single bright eye fixed on her, and through its cawing voice came another, heavier, colder. Eira, Wind Weaver, you defied my emissary. Once, but thread snapped when stretched twice. Her knees buckled under the weight of the voice. Her vow burned, pulling tight around her wrist like a chain dragged by gods. The exiles fell prostrate, some crying out to Odin, others to her. The wind hissed in her ear. It's him, not a shadow this time. The All-Father presses through his bird. Eira's throat felt raw, then let him press harder. The raven's wings beat once. A wave of power struck her, knocking her to the ground. Her shuttle clattered away. The cloak of memory writhed, voices crying out, some in rage, others in terror. The runes of the emissary flared back into being. He stepped from the shadows again, spear blazing brighter, the eye on his helm shining like fire. Eira gasped. Her limbs refused to rise. The vow pulled her one way, the runes another, each tightening until her chest felt like it would tear open. The emissary's voice thundered. Bow. Your vow is his. Your cloth his. Your name his. The exiles wailed. Even the wolf stepped back, ears flat, frost trembling in the air. Eira clawed at the stone, her voice strangled. No! The runes blazed hotter. The raven's eye burned like the sun. Her vow screamed within her, unraveling thread by thread. She felt it, breaking. Then the wolf lunged. It crashed into the emissary, jaws snapping, frost exploding across the cavern. The spear's light faltered as the beast's weight drove the runes sideways, tearing them from the ground. The raven shrieked, wings thrashing. The exiles lifted their heads in shock. Eira dragged herself upright, gasping. Her cloak flared, voices rallying. The vow stitched itself tighter, threads pulling back into place. The emissary struck the wolf with a spear, sparks and frost shattering into shards. The beast yelped but did not fall. Its jaws clamped harder, tearing through the runes carved into his armor. The raven screamed louder, its eye blazing. Eira seized her shuttle, raising it high. You will not break me. Not through cloth, not through beast, not through bone. She slammed it down, threads bursting outward, weaving around raven, emissary, and wolf alike. The cavern shook, dust raining. For a heartbeat, all was tangled. Odin's will, her vow, the wolf's defiance, the exile's desperate prayers. Then the raven screeched and broke free, soaring upward in fury. The emissary staggered, helm dimmed, before dissolving into shadow once more. The wolf limped back to her side, blood, or something colder, dripping from its jaws. Eira stood, trembling, cloak blazing with voices. Tell your master this. I am not his thread to cut. The raven circled once, furious, then vanished into the dark beyond the cavern's mouth. Silence fell, broken only by the ragged breathing of the exiles. The wind whispered, hushed and fearful. You forced Odin to pull back, but he will not forgive. You've just tied your name into his saga. Eira stared at the exit, where horns still thundered closer. Her voice was low, steady. Then let him write. I'll tear the page myself. The cavern stank of frost and smoke, a feather scorched by power not meant for mortal air. The exiles huddled against the stone, whispering broken prayers. The wolf limped, but its eyes still burned, refusing to bow. Above them, The raven returned. It circled once, slow, deliberate, and landed on a jagged stone. Its wings folded, but its eye burned brighter than flame. This time, when it spoke, the cavern itself bent with a sound. Eira, wind weaver, you cut giants. You mock runes. You refuse emissaries. Enough. I will not circle you through shadows any longer. Hear me with no veil. The air thickened. The exiles screamed, some clawing their ears, others dropping flat as if crushed by invisible weight. The wind hissed. It's him. No mask. The All-Father himself. Eira's knees trembled, but she stayed upright. Then speak plain, Odin. The raven's eye burned hotter, spilling light like molten gold. The voice deepened, not loud but absolute, pressing against her bones. You fight to keep your vow. You weave against fate itself. That is rare, rare enough to be useful. Her throat tightened. Useful to who? Not to me. To me. The cloak on her shoulders flared, her ancestors roaring in her ears. The vow seared against her wrist, resisting. Odin's voice rolled steady. Bow your vow into mine. I will strengthen it. Your village will never starve. Your bloodline will never fade. Your name will never be forgotten. I offer power that no Jarl, no giant, no Norn can unmake. The exiles gasped. Their leader cried out, Take it, save us, end the hunt. Eira's heart pounded. The promise glittered sharp, sweet, dangerous. Her people safe forever. Her vow bound so tightly no god could cut it. The wolf growled, low and warning. Frost spread across the stone, beneath its paws. The wind whispered urgently, Don't listen. He never gives. He only takes. But Odin's voice was silk and iron both. You defy me now, but your vow will wither. Threads fray, cloth rots. Alone you will fail. With me you will endure. Forever. Her wrist flared. She gasped, clutching it. For a heartbeat, she saw it. Her village thriving, children laughing, no hunger, no fear. The cloak on her shoulders glowing bright, eternal. And then she saw the price. Her name bent into his, her vow no longer hers, every step taken in his shadow. Eira lifted her shuttle, hand trembling but firm. No vow lives if it isn't free. If you take mine, it dies. The raven's eye blazed, the cavern trembling. Then die with it. The wolf snarled. The exile screamed. The wind shrieked in her ear. But Eira stood tall, cloak blazing with ancestral fire. Her voice was raw, but steady. Better to die as my own thread than live as yours. The raven's cry split the cavern, shaking stone loose from the ceiling. Then, with a beat of wings, it vanished into shadow. The silence left behind was heavier than thunder. The silence after Odin's voice was crushing. The exiles knelt as if their bones had turned to stone. The wolf prowled, restless, ears flicking at every drip of water from the cavern roof. Eira stood trembling, the vow on her wrist pulsing like a burn that would never heal. She had spoken against the All-Father himself and lived. But her chest felt hollow, as if some part of her thread had frayed in the clash. Then applause. Slow, mocking, marvelous, truly marvelous. From a crack in the stone, shadows rippled, and Loki slid into view, grinning wide. His red hair flared in the dim light, his smile sharp as a blade. You refuse giants, you refuse Odin, you even refuse me. You're going to run out of doors to slam, little weaver. Eira clenched her shuttle. Go. He raised his hands, feigning innocence. Go. After such a performance? No, no, no. I came to offer collaboration. He strolled past the exiles, ignoring their gasps, until he was nose to nose with the wolf. The beast snarled, frost curling from its jaws. Loki only winked. Then he turned to Eira, eyes gleaming. You want to keep your vow, don't you? You want your village alive, your people fed, your name unbroken? Her jaw tightened. Yes. Then don't fight Odin's power. Use it. Eira froze. What? Loki's grin widened. Oh, he offered you eternity, didn't he? He always does. All-Father loves to chain people with pretty promises. But chains are useful if you wrap them around his throat instead of yours. He leaned closer, whispering sharp, "Bind your vow to his runes. Twist them. Make them yours. You'll hold his power, but not his leash." The exiles stirred, whispering in terror. Their leader shook his head. "That's blasphemy. That's survival." Loki cut in smoothly. "You saw it, didn't you? His strength pouring through that raven. Imagine if you turned it back on him. Imagine Odin choking on the taste of his own gift." Eira's cloak pulsed, voices murmuring unsettled. Her wrist burned hotter, as if resisting the thought. The wolf growled, low and furious. The wind hissed in her ear. "Don't listen. Mischief only weaves traps." But Loki's words coiled tight. Use his power against him. Eira gripped her shuttle, heart hammering. "And what happens if I try?" Loki's smile thinned. "Then you either kill a god or become one." The cavern seemed to tilt. The exiles gasped, half in awe, half in dread. Eira's vow seared against her wrist, demanding refusal. But temptation burned just as bright. The echo of Loki's words hung in the cavern like smoke no wind could clear. Kill a god or become one. The exiles broke into whispers, harsh and hurried. Some gazed at Eira with hope bright as fire. Others looked on her with horror, clutching talismans, as though her very breath might curse them. Their leader stepped forward, voice strained. "Wind Weaver, tell us this isn't true. Tell us you won't touch his power." Eira's wrist throbbed. Her vow pulsed like a living wound. She wanted to speak, to swear she never would. But the silence stretched too long. That silence split the exiles in two. One woman rose, scarred hands trembling as she lifted her spear. "She is the saga we waited for. If she must steal the god's fire, let her steal it. Better chained to her than slaughtered by the Jarl." A murmur of agreement rippled through half the camp. Men and women pressed their palms to stone in oath, their eyes shining with desperate faith. But the others recoiled. A gray-bearded exile spat into the dust. "This is doom. A mortal tugging at the god's threads? She'll drag us all into hell's jaws." Voices clashed, rising louder. Some shouted savior. Others cried blasphemer. The cavern became a storm of human fear and longing. Eira stood frozen, cloak heavy with ancestral voices murmuring louder, hotter, like an argument carried on her skin. The wolf prowled, snarling at both sides, frost spraying from its jaws. Loki leaned lazily against a pillar, grinning wider with every shout. Ah, music to my ears. Nothing sweeter than followers tearing themselves apart before their hero's eyes. Eira spun on him, eyes blazing. "This isn't a game." "Oh, it is," Loki said softly, "and you've already rolled the dice." Her wrist seared. The vow flared so bright her veins glowed. She gasped, clutching it, sinking to one knee. The cloak pulsed, her ancestors' chorus drowning the exile's noise. A woman's voice hissed through her skull. "Take it, Odin's power. Twist it, end them all." A man's voice cried, "No. Keep clean. Keep true. Die before bending." The chant of the dead grew louder, louder, clashing with the cries of the living. Eira pressed her forehead to the stone. Silence. For one heartbeat, everything hushed. The exiles froze. Even Loki's grin faltered. She rose slowly, shoulders trembling beneath the blazing cloak. "I weave for my vow, not for gods, not for giants, not for fear. Whoever follows me does, so knowing this, I will never bow and I will never steal. If that damns me, so be it." The cavern quaked with the weight of her words. Some exiles dropped to their knees in awe. Others turned their faces away, already doubting. Loki clapped once, mocking. "Brave little thread. Let's see how long you hold before you snap." The first horn shook the cavern, deep, guttural, rolling through stone like thunder beneath the earth. The exiles stiffened, their arguments snuffed out in a single breath. Every face turned toward the tunnel mouth where faint torchlight flickered. The wolf growled low, ears flat, frost thickening in the air. Eira lifted her shuttle. Her wrist pulsed fire, her cloak blazing brighter, as if every ancestor sensed what approached. The wind whispered sharp in her ear. The hunt has found you. The Jarl himself leads them. The torches grew brighter. Shadows stretched along the walls. Then came the sound of iron, shields clashing, boots pounding stone, voices chanting. In blood, in horn, in hunt. The exiles trembled. Some pressed close to Eira, clutching her cloak as if it could shield them. Others shrank back, muttering that they had been cursed for following her. Loki only laughed, lounging against a pillar. Ah, the chorus swells. I do love an audience. Then the first warriors entered, helms crowned with antlers, axes painted in steaming blood. Their eyes glowed faint red from runes carved across their skin, and behind them strode the Jarl. Jarl Arn filled the tunnel like a storm. His crown of horn gleamed cruel in the torchlight. His axe burned with runes brighter than any of his men. His voice carried like avalanche through the chamber. Wind Weaver, he roared, you twist stone and steal followers. You mock my hall. Tonight, I tear the vow from your bones. His warriors bellowed, slamming axes as shields. The sound shook dust from the cavern ceiling. The exiles shrank in terror. Their leader forced himself upright, voice breaking. Eira, what do we do? Eira's wrist burned, the vow screaming inside her. She lifted her shuttle, steady despite the quake in her chest. We weave. She struck the stone with her shuttle. Threads burst, racing across the floor like roots of fire. The ground shifted, passages bending again into mazes. But the Jarl's warriors roared louder, their runes blazing. They hacked at the walls, and stone split under their axes. Where before men had been swallowed, now the antler-marked forced their way through. The exiles fought desperately, spears clashing with axes, but the blood-bound warriors carved through them like wolves among sheep. The wolf lunged, its jaws snapping down on one warrior, frost exploding across the ground. Eira wove faster, threads twisting around shields, pulling warriors into pits, choking torches with shadow. Still they came, unstoppable, their chant echoing through the stone. In blood, in horn, in hunt. Then Jarl Arn raised his burning axe high. With a roar, he brought it down. The cavern floor split open, stone shrieking as if alive. The exile screamed. The wolf stumbled back, frost scattering useless against the blaze of the rune axe. The wind shrieked in Eira's ear. Careful, his runes are fed with sacrifice. That axe drinks oaths. Her wrists seared, her vow twisting in agony. For a heartbeat, it almost unraveled. Eira cried out, slamming her shuttle down again. Threads surged from her cloak, brighter, louder, woven with the voices of her ancestors. This is not your hall, Arn, she roared. This is mine. The stone answered her call. Pillars of cloth-borne rocks surged upward, splitting the chamber into battlefields. The war of oaths had begun. The cavern became a storm of steel and cloth, of screams and oaths colliding. The exiles fought with desperation, spears snapping against antlered shields. The Jarl's chosen cut through them, runes blazing, voices booming their dreadful chant. In blood, in horn, in hunt. Eira wove furiously, her shuttle flashing. Threads leapt from her cloak, binding axes, twisting shadows, pulling walls into place. Each knot stole a heartbeat of time, but there were too many. The wolf tore into the enemy, frost spreading wide, but every wound it made was matched by another warrior pressing closer. Jarl Arn advanced, his rune axe devouring the air with each swing. Stone itself bent beneath its hunger. His eyes burned with hatred, but also with triumph. You cannot stop me, girl. My vow is older than yours. My oaths are written in blood, carved on bone. Her wrists seared, her vow screaming louder than the clash of steel. The cloak blazed, voices of her ancestors rising in chorus. But the sound wasn't enough. Not anymore. The exiles cried out, their voices joining the chaos. Save us! Don't let us die here. Wind Weaver, weave us too. Their fear struck her harder than any blade. The wind whispered, frantic. Careful, they beg for your vow. If you open it wider, if you take them in, it will consume you. Her knees shook. She could feel it, the edge. She could keep her vow as it was, narrow and sharp, meant only for her village. Or she could pull these exiles into the cloth, bind them to her promise, carry them as she carried her dead. But if she did, the cloak pulsed heavy, hot. The chorus roared, take them, bind them, weave them. Her ancestors urged it. The living begged it. Her soul trembled on the loom. Loki's laughter slid through the battle, sweet and sharp. Ah, the moment! Will she keep her precious vow clean, or will she drown in the weight of mercy? The wolf barked once, frost bursting like warning. Eira raised her shuttle, eyes blazing. Her voice rang through the cavern, raw and breaking. This vow was mine alone. But if it damns me to carry more, then so be it. She slammed the shuttle down. Threads exploded from her cloak, racing outward, weaving not only her ancestors, but every exile, every scream, every drop of blood spilled. The vow expanded, swallowing them all. Her wrists seared white-hot. The cloth blazed so bright it blinded the cavern. The exiles gasped as voices poured into them. The strength of the dead, the fire of memory. Spears steadied. Fear burned into fury. They rose, chanting as one, their voices braided with the ancestors. The Jarl's warriors faltered for the first time, but Eira staggered, her chest heaving, her soul stretched thin. The weight crushed her from within, every voice now tied to her breath. The wind screamed, you've done it. You've bound them all. But girl, your vow may not survive you. Eira's voice broke, but her eyes burned defiant. Then let it burn with me. The cavern blazed with living thread. Every exile stood taller, their eyes glowing faint with the fire of memory. Their broken spears felt like iron in their hands. Their cries rose like thunder, woven now into the same vow that seared on Eira's wrist. They clashed against the Jarl's chosen. Antlers cracked. Runes faltered. For the first time, the blood-bound warriors wavered. Eira stood in the center, cloak of burning storm. Her body shook, her breath ragged, but her voice thundered above all. This vow will not break. Not by gods, not by giants, not by blood. The stone itself seemed to bow to her words. Then silence fell, not in the cavern, not in the mountain. Beyond, threads stilled. The loom of the world hesitated. And in that pause, Eira felt it. Eyes, not just Odin's, not just Loki's. Greater, colder, older. The Norna's. She saw them only in glimpse. 3 shadows against a well of endless night, their hands frozen above the loom of fate. They looked at her, and for the first time in eternity, their fingers faltered. The exiles fought on, unaware, but Eira's knees buckled beneath the weight of their gaze. Her vow pulsed brighter, threatening to tear her apart. The wind whispered, trembling, girl, the Nornas don't stop, ever, but they've stopped for you. The wolf growled low, as if sensing what even gods feared. Eira clutched her shuttle, chest burning, her voice a whisper against the impossible silence. Then let them watch. And the cloth of fate trembled. The cavern still trembled with the clash of oaths. Stone cracked, threads blazed. The Jarl's warriors howled, and the exiles roared back, their voices braided with the dead. But deeper than the noise, there was silence. The kind of silence that freezes rivers. The kind that stops suns in their course. Eira felt it before she saw it. The loom of fate had stalled. The Nornas had stilled their hands. The cloak on her shoulders burned with fire and frost. Her ancestors hushed now, waiting. Even the wolf paused, ears flat, hackles raised not at men, but at the unseen. The wind whispered, ragged, girl, they're watching. The Nornas, they never stop. They never hesitate. But they've stopped for you. Eira's knees buckled. Her vow pulsed white-hot against her wrist, not in pain, in defiance, in awe. She lifted her shuttle, though her arms shook. If they're watching, then let them see. My vow is not thread for their loom. It is mine. The silence deepened. The exiles froze, eyes wide, as if they too felt the weight pressing down from above. The Jarl's chosen faltered for a heartbeat, their chants dimming. Even Jarl Arn himself stilled, his rune axe held high, his eyes narrowing with sudden doubt. But then he grinned, teeth sharp as a wolf's. If the Nornas stare, let them watch me break you. He charged, the rune axe blazing brighter, shattering the pause. Eira braced, cloak flaring, vow pulsing as the silence shattered into battle once more. The Jarl came like an avalanche. His rune axe blazed, each swing heavy enough to split stone. Sparks flew where it struck the cavern floor, carving scars deep into the mountain's bones. The exiles scattered, some screaming, others clutching their spears in vain. The wolf lunged, frost trailing its jaws, but Arn swatted it aside with a single backhanded blow of his axe. The beast skidded across the stone, yelping, blood bright against the dark. Wind Weaver, the Jarl roared, voice echoing like thunder. Your cloth will burn on my wall. Eira's wrist seared as her vow pulsed. The cloak flared, threads snapping loose, dancing in the air like lightning. She raised her shuttle and struck the ground. This is not your hall, Arn. This is mine. Threads burst outward, weaving into shields of memory, walls of fire and bark. The Jarl's axe came down, splitting them apart, sparks flying as cloth and rune collided. The cavern quaked. Threads tore. Runes cracked. Eira staggered back, the weight of every ancestor pressing on her shoulders. Her breath came ragged, but she forced her loom forward, weaving again, faster, louder. This, she gasped, is not blood's vow. This is life's. The cloth glowed, blinding. For a heartbeat, the Jarl faltered. But Arn only laughed, a wild, cruel sound. His eyes burned with madness, his axe thrumming like a living beast. Then let life die screaming. He swung again, and her cloth shattered like glass. The force hurled her back, her body slamming into stone. The exiles cried out, rushing to her, but Arn towered over them all, axe raised high. The vow on her wrist pulsed again, not just hot, molten, screaming. Her ancestors' voices surged, 1,000 cries in one. She rose, blood on her lips, cloak blazing brighter than ever. Then come, break me if you can. The rune axe and the living cloth clashed, sparks and thunder filling the cavern. Promise against blood, oath against oath. The duel had begun. The cavern shook with every clash. Rune fire from the Jarl's axe roared against the burning cloth of Eira's vow. Sparks rained like stars falling too close to earth. But she wasn't alone anymore. The exiles surged forward, their eyes glowing faint with the fire of her cloak. Their broken spears no longer wavered. They struck like extensions of her loom, each thrust tied to the vow she had spread. They fought as if possessed. Blades rang, shields cracked, blood spilled. Every exile's cry rose and wove into her vow, 1,000 voices braided into one. And Eira felt it. Each death, each wound, each breath. The cloak on her shoulders blazed brighter, but heavier. Their lives poured into her thread, burning her veins, splitting her chest. The vow grew louder, crushing. She gasped, staggering. Her shuttle trembled in her hand. The wolf fought at her side, jaws snapping, frost exploding across the stone. The beast's growls mingled with the voices in her ears, until she could no longer tell the living from the dead. Too many, she whispered. I can't carry them all. The wind shrieked back. You already chose, girl. You wove them in. Now you bear them. The Jarl pressed harder, laughing as his rune axe blazed hotter, fueled by the chaos. Look at you, drowning in your own promise. Your vow is a chain, and I am its end. He swung. Eira lifted her shuttle. Threads burst, catching the blow, but the weight of every voice behind her made her knees buckle. Her chest felt ready to tear apart. The exiles roared, fighting harder, their fury feeding her cloth even as it crushed her deeper. Eira screamed, forcing her shuttle upward. This vow is not a chain. The cloth blazed, swallowing the rune fire for a heartbeat, but her body shook, her skin splitting in lines of light, as if she herself was unraveling. The exiles cried her name, voices ragged. Some begged her to hold. Others begged her to let go. The Norna's silence pressed heavier. Watching, waiting. Eira's voice broke through the roar, trembling but fierce. If I burn, then let me to keep them alive. and her cloak flared, blinding, carrying them all forward another breath. The cavern blazed with fire and frost, with cloth and rune. Eira's cloak howled with voices, and the Jarl's axe thundered back, a storm of blood. Then the air thickened. The raven returned, vast wings scraping the ceiling, its single eye burning like the heart of a forge. The exiles screamed, dropping their weapons, some crumpling to the floor. Even the wolf froze, hackles raised, and Odin's voice poured through the bird. Enough! The word split the battle. The Jarl faltered mid-swing, his axe freezing above his head. Eira staggered, her cloak flaring and then dimming, threads quivering like prey before flame. The Allfather's voice thundered, heavy with command. The loom is mine. The vow is mine. The girl is mine. Eira's wrist seared, white hot, the vow buckling under his weight. She gasped, falling to one knee, shuttle slipping from her hand. The exiles cried out in despair. But then, silence. The raven's eye dimmed. Odin's words faltered, caught in his own throat. The Norna's gaze pressed heavier, stopping his voice mid-command. For the first time, even Odin hesitated. Eira lifted her head, blood on her lips. They don't let you speak, do they? Even your tongue waits for their loom. The raven screamed in fury, wings beating, but no words followed. And from the shadows, laughter spilled, slow, sharp, sweet as venom. Loki stepped into the torchlight, clapping lazily. Well, isn't this delightful? The great Allfather choking on silence while a little weaver shouts over him. He strolled closer, grinning wide. You've got him cornered, girl. You got the Jarl bleeding, the exiles burning, even the Norna's blinking. All you need is one last tug. Eira spat blood, gripping her shuttle again. No tricks. Oh, but this isn't a trick, Loki purred. It's a gift. Take Odin's own power. Weave it into your vow. Twist it so tight he'll choke on his own runes. You'll never fear him again. He leaned close, eyes gleaming. One cut, one knot, and the Allfather himself will hang on your thread. The raven shrieked, thrashing. The Jarl bellowed, raising his axe once more. The exiles cried out, torn between hope and horror. The wolf growled, frost steaming. The wind hissed. Careful, girl. This is the edge. Choose wrong, and you'll snap forever. Eira's chest heaved, her vow blazing hot enough to sear her skin, and the world held its breath. The cavern was no longer stone. It was a loom. Every thread burned. Voices of the dead, cries of the living, odes of blood, runes of gods. And at its center stood Eira, trembling but unbroken, shuttle in hand. The raven screeched, Odin's fury rattling the mountain. The Jarl roared, his rune axe flaming brighter than ever. Loki grinned, whispering promises of power sharp as knives. And the Nornas still watched, silent, waiting. Eira's wrist seared, her vow blazing white-hot. She saw the paths before her. Take Odin's power. Rule unbroken but never free. Take Loki's trick. Turn God against God and drown in mischief. Let the Jarl's axe fall. Die with her promise unfinished. Or hold the vow as hers alone. Mortal, fragile, but true. Her chest heaved. Blood filled her mouth. Her cloak pulsed with hundreds of voices, screaming for her choice. She raised her shuttle high. This vow is mine. The Jarl struck. His axe came down like thunder. Eira's shuttle met it. Threads blazed outward, blinding. The rune fire shattered, splitting the weapon in two. The Jarl screamed as the cloth wrapped him, pulling his body into the stone, binding him to the mountain's bones forever. The raven shrieked, Odin's power thrashing. But the threads rejected him, knotting tighter around Eira's wrist, locking him out. His voice faltered, silence again under the Norna's gaze. Loki laughed, clapping, but his smile thinned when she turned on him. No tricks, no chains, no gods. She slashed her shuttle through a shadow. The trickster's image split and vanished, echoing laughter fading into the dark. Silence. The battle ended. The exiles stood, weapons lowered, eyes wide with awe and fear. The wolf limped to her side, pressing its frost-cold muzzle to her hand. The cloak dimmed, voices softening. No longer a storm, just a chorus, steady and calm. And in that silence, the Nornas stirred. Their loom began to turn again. Thread spun onward. Fate resumed. But Eira's thread, blazing bright, remained hers. She staggered, bloodied, burned, trembling. The exiles rushed to her, cry her name, but she only lifted her hand. My vow is kept. My village will live. You will live. That is enough. Her body sagged, and the wolf bore her weight. The wind whispered, hushed, almost reverent. You wove louder than gods, and you remained yours. Eira smiled faintly through the blood on her lips. Then let the wind carry my name home. And the cavern exhaled, the battle done. Epilogue, Eira, the wind weaver. They say the mountain still remembers, that if you press your ear to its stone, you hear not rivers or echoes, but threads, humming, alive, woven in defiance. They say a woman walked there once. Her cloak was heavy with the dead, her wrists seared with a vow, and yet she carried it all as if the world itself were a spindle. Her name was Eira, the wind weaver. The exiles who followed her returned not as beggars, but as singers of a saga no god had written. Children grew with her name on their lips, not as prayer, but as proof. That one voice, held fast, can silence thrones. The Jarl's hall fell quiet, his axe gone to stone. Loki's laughter still circles the dark, but even his mischief bends away from her name. And Odin in his high seat says nothing, for even he cannot unknot what she wove. Yet Eira did not take a throne. She walked home, her feet bare on soil she had sworn to keep alive. Her cloak dimmed, her ancestors at peace. The wolf padded at her side, and the wind, always the wind, spoke soft in her ear. You wove louder than gods, and you remained yours. And so her saga ended not in halls of gold, nor in chains of eternity, but in a village that breathed again. Her thread, mortal, fragile, fierce, woven into the vast cloth of the world. And the Nornas, for one brief moment, had smiled. End of epilogue.